Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'll start again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's full council meeting. I have a few announcements to begin with. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome Councillor Damien Brooke to the full council meeting and to the council officially tonight after his successful win at the Home Valley South by-election. Welcome, Councillor Brooke. I'd also like to make an announcement, just to announce that sadly, Pauline Sims, the former mayoress of Kirklees, sadly passed away last month. Pauline was mayoress from 95 to 96 when her husband Ken was the mayor of the borough. I know that Pauline tackled the office of mayoress with much dignity and enthusiasm and will be remembered for these qualities. I know that both she and Ken have continued to support many civic events over the years, which is a testament to their commitment to the area of Kirklees. On behalf of myself and the council, I would like to take this opportunity to extend to Ken and his family our very deepest sympathy at this sad time and express our appreciation for Pauline's commitment to representing the Kirklees community during her time as mayoress. If you all remember at last month's announcements, I did announce that last month was Black History Month, and I encouraged all members to try and attend as many events in their areas as possible. This month, it's Islamophobia Awareness Month. I know that Batley have had a few events over the past couple of weeks, but if there is anything happening in your areas or wider, I would encourage all members to go along if they could and support communities where they can. I will be calling for a break at around the 6:45 mark for about 15 minutes before we go into our key discussion at 7 p.m. The Mayor of West Yorkshire is here and she will be starting her item dot on at 7. So when I do call for the break, at whatever time that is, whether it's 1:45 or 1:50, I expect all members to be back by 7 p.m, please, so Tracy can crack on with the key discussion item. I also just want to remind all members of the conduct that not just myself but the people of Kirklees expect of the members in this chamber. I am constantly reminding everybody month in, month out, which I shouldn't really need to do. We're all adults in here. But I will be less tolerant with this meeting, as I understand through legal and governance that members or some members have had a top-up training, so people are aware of what their conduct and behaviour should be in this chamber. And if you're not going to comply, I'm not going to give any more warnings this time. I will be asking members to politely leave the chamber. So please, just be mindful throughout the meeting. Thank you. Chief Exec, any other announcements? No. Thank you. Councillor Ahmed, you've indicated. Sorry, can't hear you. Just one moment. There we go.
Yeah, I was asking about the heating. It's really cold underneath me, and I've got an oxygen machine as well, and I can feel it in my lungs.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have a look into that. No problem. Yeah, we'll get it sorted. No. Yeah. Sorry, can we have order in this chamber, or am I going to have to start throwing people out even before we've started? Councillor O'Donovan.
I'll just be very brief. Thank you for the opportunity. This month also marks Men's Mental Health Month, and many will know that in my professional life I work in the area of men's mental health. In light of the tragedy that happened to Liam Payne, a friend of the family took his own life also 4 weeks ago. I've just got a really clear message for all the men in here. This evening, tomorrow, the day after, whenever, before the end of the month, I want every man in this room to start Googling mental health services for men in all 5 West Yorkshire districts. I want you to familiarise yourself. Arshad, Zahid, Imran, David, John, everybody, Afak, everybody. I want you to Google the services, not just for yourselves, but for the people that are in your lives, so you are aware of all the services that are out there. For everybody else in the room, please Google it also, because it's important that we all know about the services that are out there to tackle men's mental health. We know that it's the biggest killer of men under 50, and this is the month, if ever there's a time to do that, this is the month that we should do it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donovan. Could I also just remind members, when you press your mic, sometimes it takes us a while. The system can be temperamental, and we have had members approach us at the end of the meetings previously, those in particular with hearing aids, saying that they find it difficult. So if you just wait for your mic to go red and then you start speaking, I'd appreciate that. And when you are speaking, hopefully everybody else will behave today and we'll be able to hear you clearly, because we will just be having one person speaking at a time. Okay. Chief Exec, do you have any announcements?
No, thank you, Mayor.
None. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for absence. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apology from Councillor Gwen Low, Councillor Maniat Ahmed, Councillor Amanda Pinnick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Richard Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Martin Bolt and Vivian Lees-Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
Apologies from Councillor Adam Zaman.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Cooper.
Karen Allison and Charles Greaves will be here by 6 o'clock.
Thank you. That is noted. Councillor Munro.
I'd like to say Councillor Kath Pinnock is unable to attend this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Moving on to agenda item 3, I move that the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 16th of October 24 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please vote by a show of hands. That is agenda item 4, declaration of interests. Members who have any disclosable pecuniary interests which would prevent them from discussing or voting on any item should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor Thompson, please. I think he sat in Councillor Bolt's chair.
Right, okay. I'll move. Just a question rather than declaration. I was wondering whether I had to declare any interest reference to item 9, which is the petition on Dewsbury Sports Center, as I'm a trustee at Cal.
Yeah, we'll take that as a declaration. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any other declarations? Councillor Sokol?
Yes, I'm the same as the Councillor said, so I'm representing Kirklees Council on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form and submit to the clerk by the end of the meeting? Thank you. Agenda item 5, which is petitions from members of the council. Do we have any petitions tonight? Councillor Darji? Yep. Councillor Darji, just to remind you, you have a 1 minute maximum speech time.
Can I apologize before? I've got a bad cough, so it might be annoying for people, but I'll leave the room if it gets too bad. Just quickly to say, I agreed to present this petition for residents because they couldn't be here. So this is a petition on behalf of Frederick Walker Gardens residents. And it says this petition is regarding the lack of maintenance of this estate. Kirklees Council has not pruned the trees after multiple emails and photo evidence of the overgrown trees. There is also not enough space for residents to park their cars. After numerous attempts to improve the maintenance of Frederick Walker Gardens in Batley, the council has ignored the estate and they're also mentioning repairing potholes and resurfacing the road. The residents are very, very annoyed. They think the council is completely ignoring their needs, not responding, and they feel officers are just fobbing them off. We really need to make sure we address these issues as a council.
Thank you, Councillor Dargy. Do you want to bring that petition forward, please? And in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9.3, I direct that the subject matter of this petition be referred to the appropriate Executive Director for investigation. Thank you, Councillor Dargy. Councillor Jo Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to hand in a petition calling on the Council to have a full debate on Gaza and the issues arising in Palestine around there. And I'm handing in a petition that has 4,103 signatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Again, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9.3, I direct that the subject matter of the petitions be referred to the appropriate Executive Director for investigation. Are there any more petitions from members? No. Moving on to agenda item 6, deputations and petitions. So, deputations and petitions from members of the public. We have 4 this evening. Can I please invite Angela Nichols to present their deputation, please?
Yeah.
Welcome to the meeting, Angela. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation to the Council.
Good evening. We are Oakenshaw Monument Preservation Group. Oakenshaw Cross is a Grade 2 listed monument sitting on the site of a medieval cross. It has sat in the middle of White Lane for over 300 years. The cross was erected in 1702 by Dr. Richardson in memory of his wife Sarah, who died in childbirth. It is one of only a few monuments in the country which is dedicated to a woman. White Lane is a rural lane linking Oakenshaw with White. In places it is single track. Large farm vehicles that have had no difficulty negotiating the cross for hundreds of years. However, on the 25th of May 21, a large HGV damaged the podium steps of the cross. The impact was witnessed and details reported to the Council. The Council did not pursue a claim. The cross was further damaged by HGVs twice. On the 18th of March 22, Kirklees Together published that Oakenshaw Cross would be dismantled, transported away, repaired and then returned. On the 30th of March 22, the cross was taken away. Historic England stated that the monument should remain in its original position. Councillor Mather, Cabinet Member for Environment at the time, said, "The Council understands the significance of the cross to residents and its important local history. The location of the cross will be consulted on with interested parties to ensure the cross is protected now and for future generations." The Council commissioned West Yorkshire Archaeological Service to conduct an initial record, followed by structural watching brief during works to the damaged base of the cross, as it was planned to restore it. The survey was carried out on the 24th of May after the cross had been removed. There was no consultation with the local community, and so Oakenshaw Monument Preservation Group was formed on behalf of local residents with Spen Valley Civic Centre support. We asked MP Kim Leadbeater to arrange a meeting with the head of highways. The meeting in June 23 went well, and we were promised action in 5 key areas and told that the Conservation Officer would source funding, but she has made no contact with us. We have been stonewalled by the Council for the whole of this year. We have written to 3 councillors regarding the Heritage Link. 2 have passed the portfolio on. The head of highways, chief executive and the leader of the council who have not responded other than 2 standard receipt letters. This is not acceptable. Requests to visit the cross in storage have been ignored. We fully understand the financial circumstances of the council, but we are not asking for council money. We have been clear that along with civic society we wish to support the council in seeking external funding. However, we have been proactive. We have arranged annual peaceful protests at the site. We are creating a public information board. We have gained expert pro bono support and advice from a local business. There is now a 7.5 tonne weight limit on White Lane, albeit this was part of the plan for Junction 26 Industrial Estate. There is an improvement, but it hasn't stopped the HGVs entirely. What we want is a firm commitment that the cross will return to its rightful place and be protected. The council to formally acknowledge that the cross is at risk, to know the estimated costs of the repair and return of the cross. We want you to address the traffic issues on White Lane and make it safe. We want an agreement to visit the site with us and work with us as a group. May I also add that I am the middle of 6 generations who have lived on White Lane. When the suggestion of moving the cross to a different location arose, I knocked on every single door on White Lane with a petition that was supplied by our councillors. Every single resident, that's hundreds, agreed with passion, just like me, that the cross should remain in its original position. We feel wronged, very wronged. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Angela. Could I please invite Councillor Crook to respond, please?
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for coming into council today and for giving your microphone and for giving your deputation. I'm covering for Councillor Munir Ahmed because he's off on compassionate leave at the moment, so apologies you don't get the Cabinet Member for Highways, but I'm Deputy Leader and previously Cabinet Member for Highways, so familiar with the situation. I want to first reassure you that I absolutely recognise the importance and value of our built heritage and will support the preservation of buildings and monuments that lie within our protection as far as is possible. These assets provide history, context and meaning to us as individuals and as communities, as well as to the places that we value. In this case, the changes in human behaviour over the last 300 years have imposed a risk to the Oakenshaw Cross, which in its previous location was not acceptable. It has been damaged on numerous occasions by large vehicles, the likes of which simply did not exist when the cross was first installed. This damage ultimately led to the cross being removed as a protective step and as a safety measure. How best to proceed with restoration and reinstatement of the cross has been and is still a difficult problem to resolve, and options are still being reviewed by multiple services across the council. There are various restrictions and also, of course, resource limitations frustrating this process. The physical space available for traffic in the previous siting of the cross mean that it is very difficult to protect it from collision, and to date alternative siting options, as you've alluded to, that have been proposed have not been supported by the community and or by ward councillors. Despite the difficulties, an option to reinstall the cross at its original location, which is in the middle of the road there, have been developed alongside potential options for increasing the road space around it for traffic. The Highways team estimate that the required road safety works for this proposal within the existing highways layout, if the cross is put back in the original location, would be around £300,000. In addition to these costs, and due to the historic nature of the monument, specialist advice would need to be sought on how to correctly and safely restore the monument and also how to install it on site. This would carry an additional cost, which is currently unknown but could well be significant. I would just like to reassure you and members here that the cross is currently in secure, safe storage and therefore not at any immediate risk. This storage location is, for obvious reasons, not publicised, and we are unfortunately not able to facilitate public visits. If it would be reassuring, I'd be happy to try and arrange for a picture to be provided, which may also be useful in any assessment of the condition you wanted to undertake. The Council will continue to review options and costs for return of the cross to the original location and alternative locations nearby, As part of reviewing options, and when these are developed to the right point, we will engage and consult with local ward members, the MP and other interested parties. With regard to the road safety concerns you've raised on White Lane, I think we need to draw a distinction here between safety of pedestrians and road users and the safety of a historical monument situated in the road. Both are important but clearly very different issues. I would like to reassure you that the data we hold confirms that the safety of people is protected by current road conditions, signs and speed limits. I think that we have some further information on this later today during public questions. I think probably your public questions, so that's fine. So I won't duplicate that information here. If there are still ongoing concerns after these questions, I'll be happy to bring these to the attention of Highways Road Safety Team for consideration and response in due course. As I've outlined above, the safety of the cross when it's reinstalled is a different issue and work is ongoing to find a solution. Finally, I'd be delighted to come and speak to your group and have a chat about that. I didn't have that opportunity when I was Cabinet Member for Highways, but I'm happy to do that now if that would be useful. If you drop me an email, we'll set up a convenient time. So thanks again for giving the time to come and give your deposition.
Thank you, Angela. Can I now please invite Jake Sermon to present their deputation, please? I'll just turn it off and then turn it on when he comes in. Fantastic. Welcome to the meeting, Jake. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation to Council. Are you ready?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jake Sermon. I am chair of the Almondbury, Lepton and Fenny Bridge Business and Community Association. For the past 5 years, the association, formerly known as the ABCA, has raised £30,000, possibly actually as much as 50, I was counting back, to invest in community assets such as the Almondbury CCTV system. We've also purchased Christmas lights for Lepton and Almondbury and have organised large community celebrations centring around the switch on. However, this year we have faced serious obstacles from Kirklees Council which are putting both schemes in jeopardy. Today I would like to open a conversation about how Kirklees can better facilitate community volunteering and investment rather than creating barriers and obstacles. The CCTV system, which we funded and installed, has played a crucial role in numerous criminal prosecutions. As crime rates have risen in Almondbury, these cameras have provided vital protection for the community and local businesses. Our association fund the annual associated costs of these CCTV assets of around £3,000 every year. It is essential that community events are held for us to raise the funds to then pay all this stuff. Our main fundraising events surround the Christmas light switch on, which brings around £5,000 each year from community donations. We have collaborated tirelessly with local councillors and highways to ensure its success, bringing the community together through formal street closures, visits to Santa and his sleigh, live bands, late night shopping on the high street and Christmas lights, all stemming from the Christmas light switch on. Establishing community events is no small feat, and the community has rallied around raising funds, organising events and volunteering their time. Feedback indicates that many locals plan their holidays and businesses their business hours around our Christmas event, which has always attracted a large turnout. This event is essential for raising funds, as I previously said, that support the future community activities we're trying to put on. Sadly, these events have been cancelled due to lack of joined-up thinking, I would say, between different council departments and recent updated policies. We have recently been notified that the Almondbury lights may not be erected, and therefore there will be no community event either. The sort of consequential demotivation of volunteers and resultant lack of momentum has led to the cancellation of the Lepton celebrations. The lights are going up, but the celebrations are happening as well. And the cancellation has been quite poorly received by the locals, leaving us in a difficult position amid rising antisocial behaviour issues. As a self-funding organisation, we face a significant loss of potential earnings of around £5,000, which directly impacts our ability to continue with the CCTV, another community asset. The late cancellation of this year's Christmas lights event jeopardises future activities, volunteer engagement, and overall the care of these community assets themselves. We have worked diligently to navigate the complexities involved in facilitating the CCTV project over the last 5 years. The various permissions and coordination around the Christmas lights, that we coordinate hundreds of volunteer hours, and we've also done stuff like, in the last 3 years, a Scarecrow Summer Festival, various treasure hunts through the village. However, the bureaucratic hurdles can be quite overwhelming for a small volunteer group. While we have received truly fantastic backing from our ward and parish councillors, I don't know where you are, Alison, thanks very much, and the Kirklees staff, like Cheryl and many others, in the past, the financial support has dwindled, and given that situation, it's imperative that we find a sustainable way to fund this year's event and future initiatives. We aim to continue self-funding the community CCTV to help reduce crime in our area, and the Christmas lights and CCTV are an invaluable community assets, enhancing security and also celebrating the local spirit we've got around here. We recognise the funding gap and the funding issues that we all face, and we strive to fill it through our fundraising efforts, volunteer labour, donated resources. However, it's been a bit too difficult this year, I would say. Excuse me. So what is the solution? I mean, we would advocate a sort of pro-yes approach, similar to how Amazon seem to do it. Don't know, everyone loves Amazon, not everybody does. But they have a presumption of yes. So if there's an idea that they can't say no to, they have to say yes to it. So I think you should do that as well. Where the focus is on possibilities rather than limitations, we need the excellent council facilitators that you've got here to help us cut through the red tape and empower us to continue our efforts. It's all free for you guys. So it's disheartening for our volunteers who've invested so much time and energy to continually face obstacles rather than open doors. Unfortunately, it's probably too late for this year's event, unless you tell me otherwise, but we would have welcomed the opportunity to collaborate on this, as we have for the last 5 years, finding timely solutions even when we face funding challenges. But being told we can't do it, but we probably would have raised the money this year. We are one of many local voluntary organisations in Kirklees dedicated to providing free labour and creating community assets that benefit everyone. Surely there must be ways to work together for our common goals. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jake. Can I please ask Councillor Pattison to respond?
Thank you, Jake, and your friends there for your deputation. And certainly I have to start off by saying we not only recognise all the work that you put in, but yes, all voluntary groups right across Kirklees, and we really do appreciate it, particularly when we are lacking funds. So we do really recognise that support. But wherever possible, the council are happy and willing to support organisations with their plans to hold events, including those relating to festive celebrations. The council are happy to facilitate, and I think you've mentioned the name of a person who is or has been a facilitator with you, and knowing her, she is certainly one good facilitator. But the council are happy to facilitate and support further dialogue with Almonbury, Lepton and Fenny Bridge Business and Community Association on any events that you plan to have, and to ascertain what support you need or you may require, and how the council can be able to assist. However, sadly, as you have not just alluded to, I mean quite starkly, we are faced with this current financial climate and have been for 14 years. So I have to say it's all of the staff that have worked so hard to continue to provide community events for the last 14 years. I have to commend them for having been able to do that. But the council has got limited funding and it hasn't improved yet. We do hope it will, but it hasn't yet. And also that involves staff as well. We also, I know there's an extra issue. I think again, as you've mentioned with the lights, we have also to be conscious of ensuring that with specific regard to the installation of CCTV cameras and festive lighting, that the structural and electricity safety of any council assets are not compromised. And I believe that is different this year compared to few previous years. And I understand that that's the issue, or partly the issue. But can I assure you, we do have a can-do attitude. And we had that long before Amazon invented it. And we've always thought it was the right thing to do, whereas I think, well, no, I won't comment on Amazon. But it is important that we do have that our staff do have that can-do attitude, especially when resources, either finance or other resources, are limited. We're just not simply able to provide the support that we have done in the past. But please, again, be assured that wherever possible, we will try and find a way around such restrictions and use creativity to find alternative solutions. So thank you again for your deputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Jake, and your group. Can I now invite Sohaib Mohammed and Abdul Jabbar Chowdhury to present their deputation? Welcome to the meeting. You both have 5 minutes between you to present your deputation to Council.
Madam Mayor and councillors, thank you for allowing me this moment. My name is Sohaib Mohammed, a local concerned resident. I am here today to ask each of you to stand with me and with thousands of your constituents in supporting a crucial cause for humanity, the boycott and divestment from Israel until its actions are in line with international law. Recently, I visited the Slavery Museum in Liverpool, a place that solemnly reminds us how long and painful the path to justice and freedom can be. Liverpool was once central to the abhorrent slave trade, and yet the city also became a place that rallied against it. It took centuries to break those chains, and we know that injustice doesn't end quickly or easily. It requires good people to act with courage, time and again, to confront abuse and oppression wherever they exist. In Palestine today, the same call for justice echoes. While so many former colonies gained independence, the Palestinian people saw their land taken, their rights denied, and their lives reduced to survival in confined, blockaded spaces. The atrocities against them, their homes demolished, their children killed, water and food cut off, hospitals bombed, are a blatant disregard for human dignity and the Geneva Convention. How can we, as a society that proudly displays monuments to liberty and justice, look away? This isn't just about Palestine. It's about what happens to all people who are oppressed. It's a warning to every weak, voiceless community that their suffering can be ignored if those in power choose to look away. The rule of law itself is at question. It's undermining the very fabric that our societies have been built upon. Some may question why a local council should concern itself with the international issues. But the impacts are all around us, with rising numbers of refugees seeking safety here in Kirklees, the proposal to build to house hundreds on Manchester Road, for example, as well as local budgets decimated, while defence budgets rise. We are connected to these global issues. Wars drive up our food and fuel prices and affect our ability to care for our own. Our constituents have been clear. They want us to stand for peace, justice and human rights. They've marched. Over 4,000 have signed petitions and asked for our representation. As a council, we have the power to respond meaningfully, as Leeds has done today. This is a pivotal moment. We were right to stand against slavery, colonialism, and fascism. And today we are called to make the same choice for the Palestinian people. Let us act with the same moral clarity and let history remember that Kirklees stood on the side of justice. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, my name is Abdul Jabbar and I'm a local resident who has spent the last month discussing this motion with the local residents. We have all seen the appalling images on our screens, images that we cannot unsee, haunting us daily. They are a grim reminder that brutality, which should be confined to history, resurfaces when we allow apathy to take hold. As a council, you carry an ethical responsibility and indeed a legal right to sever ties with companies that aid or enable violation of international law. The High Court has upheld local councils' rights to take such action, ruling in favor of such councils. Consider the staggering facts. More children have been killed in Gaza in the last 4 months than in the past 4 years across all global conflicts, with the highest number of amputation, most done without sanitation or pain relief. Over 43,000 Palestinians are dead, 10,000 missing, and over 100,000 injured. Amnesty International, the UN, ICJ, ICC, and many other organizations have strongly criticized Israel's action. 93% of Gaza people are on the brink of starvation. If we continue to indirectly support Israel, it is a stand on this council. Such support undermines international law and implies complicity. I urge this council to debate this issue openly, to hear the people of Kirklees, and to adopt a motion that commits to ethical transparency and in all investments and procurements. Our community is waiting and watching. We are already too late for too many Palestinians, but for those who remain, every minute counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul Jabbar Chowdhury and Suhaib Mohammed. Could I ask Councillor Pattison to respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to both of you for bringing this important debate or deputation to Kirklees Council. The situation is of great concern to myself, the whole of this council, I'm sure, and as you say, to many residents and beyond. Kirklees is home to many residents from diverse backgrounds and different nationalities, cultural heritages and faiths. The council leadership recognises that the situation in Israel and Gaza has caused immense distress, fear and anger.
Sorry, Councillor Pattison, I'm going to have to stop you there. Can the councillors at the back of the chamber please lower the flag? We've been through this many times. Please. Thank you. Please continue, Councillor Pattison.
Thank you. As I said, the council leadership recognises that the situation in Israel and Gaza has caused immense distress, fear and anger amongst many Kirklees residents. There have been a number of protests and community gatherings in Kirklees demonstrating how strongly some Kirklees citizens feel about this situation over the past 12 months and more. And it is important to listen and to support people who are distressed about these events, offering support and making sure that they feel heard. For instance, we know how many of our schools have worked hard to do this for young people and have been supported by council officers to access information and support that is appropriate to their age and understanding. And that's just one example. This is what is important to us as a council, listening and supporting our communities. The Council is also working with police and other relevant government departments where appropriate and necessary to do this. We can all feel powerless in the face of such loss and suffering, and it is hard for local councils to take any real, meaningful actions that will directly change this. However, we are here as elected representatives to listen and make sure that residents' voices are heard. That is clearly our job. However, the Council does operate within a legal framework and has a key responsibility to ensure that best practice and legal requirements in procurement, for instance, are adhered to. We must ensure that Council funds are spent wisely and deliver value for money. We also believe that environmental, social, legal and governance factors are also important in the spending of that money, and our procurement practices demonstrate this. However, we cannot legally and intentionally exclude purchases of goods from Israeli companies. There are also a number of laws in place in relation to West Yorkshire Pension Fund's investments. The West Yorkshire Pension Fund has a fiduciary duty to its pensioners and participating employers whose money it invests on their behalf. This is not council money, it's individuals' money. Councillors do not make those decisions. The West Yorkshire Pension Fund discloses all investments on its website, and at the time of writing, it does not have any holdings in any of those companies, Israeli companies. The Supreme Court has also held in its judgment on the Palestine Solidarity Campaign case that pension funds cannot take into consideration political preferences over what is required under their fiduciary duty. However, the United Nations Human Rights Council publishes the data of companies involved in specific activities in the occupied Palestinian territory. So thank you again for raising this important issue. We do take it very seriously. We are concerned. We do want to see justice, and we will do what we can within our powers to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Soed Mohammed and Abdul Jabbar. Could I now invite Helen Wilson to present their deputation, please? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting, Helen. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation to Council. Thank you.
We, the Dewsbury Cemetery Action Group, are here to address urgent concerns regarding the allocation and use of burial land funding, and to seek transparency and commitment from the Council for Dewsbury's burial provision needs. This issue is critical, and with Dewsbury's burial land expected to run out by spring 2025, immediate and clear action is necessary to ensure that our community's needs are met. In recent years, the Council allocated £500,000 specifically for the acquisition of burial land in Dewsbury. However, we are concerned by the shift in focus to North Kirklees as a whole, rather than Dewsbury, which faces the most pressing shortage. Moreover, Huddersfield and Hetmond-Wyke appear to be receiving priority, even though Hetmond-Wyke has a comparatively low demand for burial spaces. Dewsbury's situation, on the other hand, is critical, and it seems this funding is being diverted rather than directly applied to resolve Dewsbury's imminent shortfall. Additionally, we were initially presented with a proposed Cleckheaton site as part of a broader multi-faith burial ground initiative. Yet now we hear that the Council may not have the budget for this project until at least 2026, which raises concerns about both feasibility and timing given the Council's financial challenges. With a significant deficit, it seems unlikely that this project will gain approval, leading us to question whether these delays are simply tactics to defer responsibility. The Council has also stated that no available land exists in Dewsbury for burial expansion. However, this claim requires clear evidence. Can the council provide transparency on efforts made to locate land in Dewsbury and nearby areas? It is concerning that the public is repeatedly asked to suggest land locations, as we believe that identifying and assessing available land should fall under the council's duties. If these responsibilities are not met due to cuts in staffing, we need clarity on the resources actually devoted to this critical task. Furthermore, while £500,000 has been earmarked, it remains unclear what this amount will realistically cover in today's market. Has the council determined the acceptable price per acre for private burial land? And if so, what size is deemed adequate for the community's needs? The council has also requested potential land donations from the public. This approach may seem impractical given that £500,000 may not stretch far enough, and we wonder if alternative funding efforts such as public donations or even a community-driven funding initiative has been considered or discussed with the leadership. Our community requires assurance that additional burial spaces will indeed be available within Dewsbury, providing certainty and respect for all residents and honouring cultural needs. Given that existing land is projected to be exhausted by spring 2025, it is imperative that the council presents a definitive plan addressing how and when adequate provisions will be secured for Dewsbury residents. We ask the council to provide, number one, a clear timeline and actionable steps towards securing burial land, specifically within Dewsbury. 2, transparency on the land search process, including specific details on areas that have been assessed and why they were deemed unsuitable. 3, a concrete plan for how the council intends to manage this issue if no additional funding is secured or if the budget shortfall worsens. 4, an outline of alternative funding methods or initiatives being considered to ensure the community's needs are met. Thank you for addressing these urgent concerns. We look forward to clarity and commitment from the council to ensure that Dewsbury residents have the essential burial provision they deserve.
Thank you, Helen. Could I ask Councillor Pattison to respond, please?
Thank you for your deputation. And I appreciate how concerned you are about future burial space in Dewsbury, so thank you for raising these issues. In 2023, the Council agreed to allocate £500,000 capital funding in order to extend burial space in Dewsbury for Dewsbury residents, as it is likely that the council-managed Dewsbury Cemetery will have no remaining plots for Muslim burials by the end of 2025, early 26, not quite as early as you were suggesting. So it's a little bit longer than you've stated. But there is sufficient space for other faiths and people of no faith for 10 years, as fewer people from these faiths choose to be buried. Once the private cemetery owned by the Muslim Burial Council of North Kirklees is ready, there will be up to another 600 plots available in Dewsbury for Muslim burials, providing for at least another 5 years. The £500,000 funding was not all for acquiring land. It was put aside to undertake feasibility studies and develop appropriate council land. The initial aim was to source land in Dewsbury which was suitable to be developed as a cemetery. Unfortunately, the assessment of council land in Dewsbury has resulted in no suitable land being identified. The £500,000 funding remains there and will continue to be used to ensure that Dewsbury residents of all faiths and no faith can choose to be buried. If there is no suitable land within Dewsbury itself, then we have to look elsewhere. So officers are also exploring creating more plots in other cemeteries in North Kirklees so that Dewsbury residents can be accommodated there. The search for suitable land, though, in Dewsbury continues alongside those other measures. There has been a very clear plan which officers are implementing in the search for these burial sites. The first, most immediate step was to create more plots in Dewsbury Cemetery, which resulted in around 80 adult plots and 12 for children being created. The short-term step is to create more space at other cemeteries in North Kirklees, which will take up to 2 years. The medium to long-term plan is to try to identify land in Dewsbury, seeking planning permission and developing the land, but this is likely to take at least 5 years. If this is not possible, and given that other cemeteries across Kirklees have limited plots, which one day will be full, we will seek a large plot of land somewhere in North Kirklees to create a new cemetery. In South Kirklees, for example, there is just one cemetery, which has a few years back now, Hay Lane, was sourced, and that's a cemetery where all South Kirklees residents who wish to be buried will travel to. You've asked some very detailed questions, so I will ask officers to arrange to meet with you to build on the answers that I've given you today and discuss any other questions that you may have. But I do thank you for your deputation today and do recognise your concerns, but I would like to assure you, well, we also have those concerns, and we obviously want to make sure that everyone has access to a burial ground if that's what they choose to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Helen, and members for attending the meeting. Agenda, sorry, are there any? No, that's it, sorry. So there's no public petitions from what I understand. We will move on to agenda item 7, which is public question time. And sorry, 15 minutes is permitted for this item. 3 public questions have been received and responses have been circulated. Supplementary questions will be permitted if the person who submitted the question is present at this meeting. And I understand that both Angela Nichols and Christopher Ellis are here. Angela has 2 supplementaries for the questions, for the answers that she's had. So can I please invite Angela to ask her first supplementary, please?
In all its glory. Oh, okay. In response to your response, yes, Wyclerne is on the periphery of Kirklees. The Bradford side of Wyclerne has adequate signage. Kirklees has the semi-rural route, which is single track in places. You say there have been no injury collisions during the last 10 years. I find this really quite hard to believe. In fact, just last week, I was witness to a collision of a speeding car which drove head-on into an upcoming vehicle. 3 cars were written off. There were 2 casualties taken to hospital. The Spen Valley Greenway, which is being promoted for use, has 3 access points on the Kirklees section of Wyclerne. Surely you want to prevent injuries and make it safe for the ever-increasing users of the Greenway. How many high-risk personal injury collisions does there need to be? We were told after the meeting with Highways back in June 23, the only meeting that we've had, that a request for traffic calming measures would be considered in the 25-26 programme. We were told that. What has become of it?
Could I ask Councillor Crook to respond on behalf of Councillor Munir Ahmed, please?
So thank you, Angela, for coming to ask this supplementary question today. I'll try and cover some of the detail that you've asked about and perhaps talk a little bit about some of the issues you've raised, but not answer everything. And I think you'd need to send me an email if you want detailed answers to some of the points, because I won't have that data to my fingertips. Well, there's one question, but I think so. You've referenced no collisions in the last 10 years being the data that we hold, for example. If you've experienced or if you've witnessed an accident recently, that won't be included in our data yet, so I'm not able to comment on that sort of information at this point. I think when you talk about the importance of links to the Greenway and active travel being promoted, I absolutely agree with you. I think promoting active travel is a big part of what I do for my transport portfolio, and I totally agree with you. It's important not only that we have safe routes, but that we have the perception of safe routes so that people feel safe to take that active travel option. I want people to think of it as the easy and obvious choice to not take the car. So I'm absolutely with you on that. I mean, I said during your previous question that I was happy to come and speak to your group. I am happy to come and speak to your group about active travel as well, and about how we encourage people to leave the car at home and go by foot or wheel. With respect to the signage on this road, I think the officers have indicated that there might be an opportunity in the future to look at making the signage more visible at the end of the road that you're questioning, but we need to bear in mind that the particular concern is around HGVs using this route, and there are businesses along this route, and we are not... Okay, so a couple of issues there. We're not able to prevent HGVs from accessing existing businesses. The businesses are entitled to carry on, so we can't stop that. On speeding, we can put equipment in place to get some data on what speed people are actually travelling at, and when it's appropriate, we can then reference that to allocate resource to try and encourage either change in behaviour or change in speed limit or physical changes to the road. What I would say is you can also approach your ward councillors and try and get a SID device installed, speed indication device, which is one of those signs that flashes up with the speed. That's really useful because those devices also keep a log of the speed people are travelling at, so that gives more evidential basis for allocation of resource. We don't have to wait until someone's been hurt to allocate highway safety resource, but it is really important that the resource that is available is used in an evidence-based way to reduce harm. And if we use it in the way that we do, and we have data to say that that is effective at reducing harm, to reallocate on the basis of there might be an accident if we don't do something is quite a difficult equation to square, because you're using supposition rather than actual evidence. If you had all the money in the world, that would be a useful way to use it, but with a finite resource, we have to use both evidence and industry standard responses to ensure that we get the maximum safety improvement for the resource we have available in Kirklees. So I hope that's answered some of your questions. I've tried. Yeah, it's very difficult. So.
Sorry. Access points there, and it is heavily used. I live there, I know.
Yeah.
And surely it's better
Yeah,
prevention of an accident rather than wait until another one.
Sorry, Angela, I'm going to stop you there. You've asked your supplementary, he's responding to that. If there is anything else that you want to ask, that needs to happen outside of the chamber. This isn't a conversation, it's just an answer to the supplementary, if that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
You've got another question? No, you can stay on and ask your next question.
Okay, yes, there are 7.5-tonne signs at the bottom of Wyke Lane, but they are badly positioned. An HGV driver would already be committed to the turn before he sees the signs, seriously. And does the 7.5-tonne restriction apply when the trailer is empty? This is why we need a length restriction as well. Following on from our protest in March, David Shepherd, where's David Shepherd? Is he here today? Oh, hello, David Shepherd. You were quoted in the Telegraph and Argus, following on from our protest, saying that you are working closely with residents. Well, this is not true. Not true. We want to work with you, and we really want to help you to source external funding. Are you going to continue what was promised in the meeting with Highways back in June 23, the only meeting, that the action in 5 key areas, including an internal audit regarding why the claim has not been made for the original damage to the podium steps? There were 5 key points that we were promised.
Sorry, Angela, your supplementary needs to be to the answer, and it needs to be to a member of the council, not the officers. Sorry.
Okay, so I guess this is a bit of a continuation of the not conversation about road safety on this road. I absolutely don't speak for David Shepherd, so we'll have to resort to email and follow up to cover the issue that you've raised there about whether there was a claim made against the lorry driver's insurance company after the accident. I can't comment on that. What I can say is the 7.5 tonne weight limit is a classification of vehicle. That's nothing to do with whether it's full or overloaded or underloaded. It is the weight restriction of that type of vehicle. But again, we are unable to prevent the use of that road by larger vehicles when they're servicing the businesses which already exist on that highway.
Farm vehicles have never had a problem.
Yeah, I mean, farm vehicles have a slightly different taxation class and weight restriction, and they also have different speeds and so forth. So I don't think there's no point us having a conversation about whether farm vehicles or HGVs serving farms or whatever is the vehicles we're talking about. I'm saying there is a legal restriction on what we can prevent. In terms of the signage, I think the written answer did indicate that officers are happy to review the visibility of the signs at that end of White Lane. I can't say when. I think they said when resource allows, and I think we're in a position, as is very well publicised across local government, where we don't have the resource we would like to have, and so particularly in highways there's an enormous shortage. When I was Cabinet Member for Highways, we had something like a £300 million maintenance backlog across highways built up over a decade and a half. So in that context, it's quite difficult to make all of the changes we would like to make. But I absolutely take your point, particularly about active travel. It's very much at the top of my mind and something that I want to promote. And I know there are other members in the Chamber who also feel strongly about active travel. I'm happy to come and speak to you about that and look at ways that we can make it feel safer, notwithstanding a recent accident that you've witnessed, make it feel safer as well as actually being a safe place for people to walk. So thank you again for coming in, and I look forward to meeting you again. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Councillor Crook. I think that conversation definitely needs to happen. I thought we were going to start having it here for a moment. Can I now please invite Christopher Ellis to ask their supplementary, please?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and ask a question, and thank you for Councillor Turner for his reply. I've been a volunteer for 10 years, actively encouraging people to do things for the community. These cuts are going to destroy these hearts of community. On average, over 24 libraries, this means a saving or cuts of £38,000 per library. Potentially a loss of 24 staff. This would not cover those savings. Therefore, there will be severe loss of opening times. Loss of warm spaces, reduced capacity for groups to meet, less opportunity for volunteers. Volunteers would need to come to the rescue of the libraries once again. However, volunteers have already said no to volunteer-run libraries. This means library closures, doesn't it?
Thank you, Mr Ellis. Could I ask Councillor Turner to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr Ellis, for coming along this evening. Excuse me. Technically, this is not my portfolio. It sits with communities, but Amanda's on holiday, and given the fact that I'm probably the most well-informed person in this room about libraries and more, apart from John, perhaps, I will happily answer your question. Apart from John, because he'll scowl me if I don't think there's anybody more committed to libraries than I am. We developed that programme that saved those 24 libraries, and I've said it in here and I'll say it again, is where in the rest of the country do you find any local authority that hasn't closed libraries for the last 15 years? We did a tremendous job, the staff were tremendous, the volunteers have been tremendous, and we did a fantastic job. As you read in the response, we need to, every part of the service needs to deliver some cuts because we have a budget to meet in March. And at this moment in time, there is a consultation going on, so please speed into that and encourage the rest of the public to speed into that consultation. It is not on anybody's agenda to close libraries. We're going to find a solution to this problem. We found it twice before. I'm sure that Amanda will be able to do that, and we'll find a solution this time round. But you have my total support for libraries. As I say, there's nobody in here more dedicated to the library service than I am. Might be equally, John, but not more. So thank you very much for coming this evening, and we will do everything we possibly can to continue to deliver a fit-for-purpose library service going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr.
Libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis, and thank you, Councillor Turner. Agenda item 8, which is the West Yorkshire Combined Authority minutes. They are here to receive for information. The minutes are here for noting only. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, when I was reading these, there were just two things that occurred to me. Perhaps Councillor Patterson could just let us know what these are about. The first is on page 15 of the Council Pack tonight, which is Home Energy West Yorkshire Programme. And there's 5.6 million extra going in there. And could you tell us what that is, please? Because I don't know what that is, and I'd like to know what it is. And the second one is on page 18. We are to get the grand total of £72,500 for traffic signal obsolescence grant. Could we know what the Cabinet would intend to spend that on, please?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Patterson, are you going to respond to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. The Home Energy West Yorkshire one-stop shop, I mean, that is, well, I think that's what it says on the tin, a one-stop shop that delivers advice on home energy West Yorkshire, in West Yorkshire. I have to say it is a project, an existing project already on the that's been on the stocks for West Yorkshire Combined Authority for some time, and this was just additional approval to going forward from the full business case to the delivery. But I'm sorry, I really cannot give you any detail about the exact bus stops that we will be spending the money on, but I can make sure that you do have a written response on that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Hall, do you have a supplementary to that?
Yeah, thank you. I kind of got the gist that it was a one-stop shop for advice, but when there's £10.5 million going into it, I'd like to know who's delivering the advice and where they're delivering it and how residents can actually access that advice, because £10.5 million is an awful lot of money for an advice scheme. And then, yeah, I hadn't realised it was anything to do with bus stops, the second bit, so maybe I've misread that.
Councillor Patterson.
Sorry, I probably misheard you, Councillor Hall, on that second one. But in terms of the first one, it isn't just advice, I'm sorry. But if you really want a detailed explanation as to where that 10 million is going, I will get it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Marchington, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I understand it, part of the home improvement grants from West Yorkshire is about providing residents of Kirklees with access to loans up to £25,000 to local public local public works board rates, which to me seemed a really good idea. Given that that will enable residents to access improvements to the house, solar panels, heat pumps, and sort of, at very low rates, can the current Labour administration actually reconsider their objections to put in solar panels and PV systems on council house properties in Kirklees, which have been proposed by both the Liberal Democrats and the Greens over the last 2 to 3 years? Because it's exactly the same sort of scheme. Residents or tenants of Kirklees homes would actually benefit massively in terms of reductions of their electricity bills, and any savings they make could actually cover their loan repayments. So I think it is a good scheme. It's good to provide all residents with access to that sort of funding to improve stuff, but it's a pity that tenants in Kirklees have been stopped from doing that over the recent years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Councillor Pattison.
Thank you. I would just comment that I don't think that is a comment on the minutes of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, but I'm sure the thought of solar panels on council houses has been well considered in the past and will be again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Councillor McGrath, please. Sorry, Councillor Marchington. Do you? Yeah. Supplementary.
It is a comment on the Combined Authority minutes, following on from what Councillor Hall has said, because it's about a scheme that's providing access to resources for some residents, which council tenants are being excluded from, and this council could facilitate that at no cost to the council taxpayer. So I do think it relates to what was asked the question on the minutes. Sorry, Carol. That's a comment.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Councillor McGrath, sorry about that.
I think I'll stand up this time, thank you. I'm just wondering how much of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements Fund is being spent on the Lawnswood roundabout, and if we as a council agree, as a cabinet agree that just shy of £13 million is an acceptable amount to spend on making an existing roundabout marginally safer for cyclists and pedestrians. Thank you.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with that particular scheme. I'll have to get a written answer back to you, so I'm afraid that's the best I can do. I'm not Cabinet Member for Highways at the moment, but I am willing to look into that and get back to you. Thanks.
Supplementary? I thought I'd ask this time. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If there aren't, I would like to call for the break now, and if everybody could please return to the chamber by 7 p.m. Please be seated. Okay, so we finished at agenda item 8. I am just going to pause agenda items 9 and 10 and move to agenda item 11, which is the key discussion. So the elected mayor of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority has kindly joined us this evening for the key discussion. Welcome to the council meeting tonight, Tracy. A presentation will be given prior to the key discussion debate on the elected mayor's priorities, which will be followed by a question and answer session. After the presentation, please could members request to speak if they wish to ask a question. I will then, alongside the Deputy Mayor, apply proportionality across groups in order to give as many members as possible the opportunity to ask questions. Supplementary questions, unfortunately, won't be permitted. So politely ask your question and then even more politely, wait for your response from the Mayor of West Yorkshire, and then we'll move on to the next person. So no supplementaries and no conversations back and forth. Just wait for your answer, as I said. Thank you. So when you're ready, over to you, Tracy.
Thank you to all this evening. It's always an absolute huge pleasure to be on home turf. And the fact that you are my council. So thank you for all that you do. And Councillor Addy, you are my councillor. So thank you very much for everything that you do. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm holding you to account. I might have questions for you. Now look, we all know that these evenings sometimes are tough. I always slightly dread them. I think it's worse than question time. But I'm looking forward to some robust questions. And as I've always said, I want our mayoral combined authority to be the most transparent MCA in the country, to be the most accessible, to have the most opportunity to speak to you, whether that's Mayor's Question Time, Message the Mayor, or coming to councils across the whole of the region. So thank you for coming this evening. And it's absolutely boiling in here. So if I faint, it's because I'm going to blame Steve Mawson for putting up the heating. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to your questions. And of course, some of them may be technical. I might not know everything. So please, I hope you will indulge me if I then reply that I would like to respond in more detail through email. So please don't feel I'm being stubborn or not clear, but I do often want to, if it's technical, reply in better detail. So I can't believe it's been a year since I was last here, and since we last spoke, we've had a number of elections. We've had local elections, mayoral elections. I was so delighted to be re-elected, and can I thank all of the councillors in this room that campaigned for me, and I hope you saw that I campaigned for you during the elections, because it is a team sport, isn't it? We've also had the election of a new government in Westminster with a Labour-led council, a Labour mayor and a Labour government. There is so much that we can do for the people of Kirklees. And the new government has absolutely transformed our engagement as mayors. From fighting tooth and nail to get a hearing from previous ministers of the previous government, sending letter after letter after letter with no response, no interaction, no conversations with mayors. It could not be more different. It's like night and day. And sometimes I've got multiple ministers wanting to come to our region that I have to say, can you just rearrange that? Because we've got too many coming. And I do believe that they are genuine in their commitment to further and deeper devolution, shifting power out of Whitehall and Westminster by default. They've set up a council of regions and nations, a council of mayors, a council of leaders, and those of you who went to the LGA event in Harrogate recently, you'll have seen greater interaction from ministers there. A new English devolution white paper, which is going to empower local areas like ours to take more of the decisions that matter to our region here locally. Decisions like taking control of our bus services, delivering on franchising, as I did earlier in the year. Decisions like investing in retrofit homes to make them warmer and more sustainable. And like Councillor Patterson and I did at the Combined Authority meeting last month, Decisions like investing £2.3 million in a new cultural fund to support local creatives and to say to them, you can make it here. We launched earlier this year. We know that the creative industries is a sector that is growing. You invest in a growing sector, it grows faster. And only this afternoon, I was in Hebden Bridge at the Trades Club. It's a fantastic venue launching the West Yorkshire Music Network. So anybody that's in music or anybody that is interested in music in your patch, and I've referenced it to Councillor Hall for him and all of his experience and many contacts in music to get involved. And in West Yorkshire, we're going to be able to do more of this with that single settlement, because in last month's budget, we got confirmation that finally we were going to be next to get the single settlement. In previous government, it seemed like we would get it in 2028. And this time it's going to be 2026. So I'm really pleased that the government have listened and understood that we are absolutely ready. We are mature enough to handle that single settlement that's going to come in 2026, much sooner than the previous government. And it's just going to allow us to take more control over the money that we get and how it is spent, and ensuring that programmes and projects are properly tailored to the needs of the people of Kirklees and of our region. The budget also confirmed that the government are going to continue to back our health tech and digital tech investment zone. Now, I know this is hugely important to you as councillors in Kirklees, bringing together the strengths of our local businesses and 3 of our incredible universities, and obviously one right here in Huddersfield. And the investment zone will help us deliver the National Health Innovation Campus at the university and provide that incubation space to support business growth and innovation and build more businesses like Paxman Coolers, who you will remember, they were in the beer cooling business, and then the mum sadly got cancer. She hated the cold cap. They said, we're in the cooling business, surely we can design something better. And they worked with Huddersfield University to develop a cold cap that is now sold across the world. And something I was very proud to discuss on my recent trade mission to the US, Richard Paxman came with us. 50% of their export is in the US, from one small company in Huddersfield, now taking on the mighty medical giants in America. The health tech and digital investment zone is absolutely central to our growth ambitions in our region and is prominent in our emerging local growth plan, which is going to be approved at the Combined Authority meeting next month. The plan sets out the ambitions we all have for our region and shows the importance of towns and villages as well as our cities, emphasising the polycentric nature of our region. As you know, we're not like Manchester, we're not like London, where you have one central hub where all the energy pours into the centre. We have extraordinary and amazing individual local authorities in our patch, all with their own identity. And the plan, this growth plan, will back Kirklees' ambitious Huddersfield Blueprint and the Cultural Heart Programme, realising Huddersfield's potential and creating a thriving modern-day town centre. The plan's also going to bring together our ambitions around transport, improving connectivity across our region, while ensuring investment in transport drives positive change in our communities, delivering those wider benefits we all know, enabling people to get to jobs, get to skills training, get to opportunities, and ending loneliness. We need to make sure that the benefits of the Trans-Pennine route upgrade are properly felt across Kirklees. And as a resident who uses that line, as I say, and I said last time I was here, it has been incredibly painful, but I think the prize is great. And certainly it was very reassuring to see that work recommitted by a Labour government. And we know the benefits are going to be absolutely worth it, not just improved journey times, more reliable rail services, but the opportunity to unlock those jobs, homes, communities such as Dewsbury Riverside. Now, I've come to this council before to talk about the ambitions that I have for transport, the ambitions we have to transform the bus network in our region, the importance of franchising, the decision we made earlier in the year. Irritatingly, and I'm sure you're as frustrated as me, it takes time to implement that decision. The first franchise buses in Kirklees won't be on the roads until 27, which feels like it is years away and quite frustrating. But we are continuing with improving the network as the years roll on. My team at the Combined Authority are honestly working flat out to deliver on the improvements it's going to bring. But we're also focused on the here and now. And I know, because I use the buses, that the current state of the network, particularly around Dewsbury and Batley, is not good enough. As you know, Arriva Yorkshire advised the Combined Authority in September that they intended to make significant reductions to their bus network in the region. Their rationale was driver shortages linked to ongoing issues in the Wakefield depot, which has seen buildings on the site condemned. Now, despite our best efforts, as we have devolved power over adult education budget and skills training, we've trained 150 drivers, but very few have gone to Arriva. I think Arriva must then question themselves as to why so few bus drivers have gone to Arriva. Very irritating for us, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that they have access to good drivers. And we're in regular contact and dialogue with Arriva, and we've stressed any impact the changes are going to bring on our passengers across the region have got to be mitigated. And we have been working really closely with Arriva to ensure that all of the service changes they wanted to implement, that some of them have been drawn back, and we won't see any changes to the service network for Arriva until February. So we've insisted that they can't just cut today, that they have to follow due process. We're also working to find alternative operators to deliver some of those services. And I'm really delighted we've had positive response to the tenders we've already put out to run the 212 that Arriva are withdrawing from. And very interesting that those companies that are interested in coming to our region, they are new to us. So it does suggest that people are interested in our region when it comes to franchising. I also wrote to the Traffic Commissioner to raise concerns about Arriva's performance, highlighting that 10% of scheduled mileage is not being operated across our region. Services just aren't good enough, and I promise to do all I can to hold Arriva to account. But until we franchise the network, my powers are limited. However, as you know, we were one of the first combined authorities to bring in the Mayor's Fare, the £2 fare. So we're waiting to hear from government about our allocation from the bus funding to see how we can keep the £2 fare, or at least cheaper fares going forward, because I know, certainly door knocking, the impact of cheaper fares has had it really does affect family budgets. So I'll be doing all I can to try and keep them as low as possible. So I'll be able to tell you more once we know our allocation from government. Alongside Councillor Patterson, our fellow members of the Combined Authority, we are all working together to have that brighter future for everyone in West Yorkshire. And whether that's my commitment to tackle serious violence on our streets with a new police and crime plan, taking money from criminals with the Mayor's Community Safety Fund, and then giving it back to communities. This time round, it's £1 million. I think our team, who work at West Yorkshire Police, are one of the best in the country at finding that money, selling those cars, selling that jewellery, finding the cash, and making sure that the money goes back to the community. So I'm really pleased, and hopefully you will, as councillors, alert your community groups to this fantastic opportunity. And whether that's my pledge to bring in a programme to insulate every social home in West Yorkshire by 2028, as we've heard, the creation of the Home Energy West Yorkshire one-stop shop, or building those 5,000 affordable homes, working with Homes England to unlock millions of pounds of investment into our communities, or creating a region of learning with new skills and a training system that will change the way in which young people can access technical education across West Yorkshire, or getting spades in the ground on mass transit by 2028, with plans to bring it to Kirklees soon after. Honestly, my message is clear to you and to the people of Kirklees. I am delivering for you, I'm delivering for the communities you represent, and for everyone that lives in our region. And as always, I'm really looking forward to your questions. Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm now going to open this up for any questions. I think the first one to press their buzzer was Councillor McGrath, so I'm going to come to you first.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you for coming, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for your speech.
Tracy, please.
Tracy, Tracy, we'll do that. So, as previously mentioned, and I've seen in the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, is spending some of their funding on 12.37 million on making Lawnswood Roundabout above Headingley safer for motorists, but mainly in the strategic plan it was for cyclists and pedestrians, especially for the school, and I do understand that. Personally, I believe the costs are astronomically high, but we'll just go with high for now. And the economic case described in the strategy was classed as poor value for money on a cost-to-benefit ratio. Having done many long-distance bike rides, 3 of them for Huddersfield Town across Europe and back to Huddersfield to raise money for the Keep It Up campaign and the air ambulance, I prefer to stay on my bike, so wherever possible. So whether it be going under the road or going over a bridge would be preferable, and probably a lot cheaper and safer for the cars, so you're not crossing their carriageway. With this in mind, this scheme is going ahead. There's nothing we can do, and obviously it's too late to make the changes that I would like to see. I would like to ask you to support a much more efficient scheme in my ward of Home Valley North. We would like to see the Meltham Greenway extended from Netherton, well, from Meltham to Netherton. There's a middle bit that's pretty tricky, but right now we're in a position to get the Netherton to Healy House Bends completed, which would avoid further fatalities on the Healy House Bends to cyclists, which has already happened, and avoid further injuries to drivers and pedestrians, again, which are quite commonplace. So any help in getting more funding and or more publicity to this cause would be very much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I firstly thank you for your commitment to fundraising for much needed charities. So thank you for all you do. Obviously, Lawnswood is Leeds, so I'm very happy to answer questions around Kirklees. So to your point about Meltham, I am absolutely committed to active travel, and that's why one of the first things I did was working with officers to get money for the resurfacing along the canal, Marsden, Slowett and on. We know that there are many commuters who use that route, and we want it to be safe. But let me take that away, and thank you for raising it with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Will Simpson, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Tracy, for being with us today. You might not be aware, but this is actually the second time we've been together today. As I passed you outside Leeds train station this morning, I threw you a friendly smile and you pied me. So, Madam Mayor, I have a number
something on my mind, honestly.
I have
I'm
a
so
number
sorry,
of
Will.
questions for the Mayor of West Yorkshire. No, I'm joking. The Penistone line upgrade is something that I've personally been campaigning for about 8 years. For Councillor Turner, it's even longer, because everyone might not be aware of this, but Councillor Turner's a little bit older than I am. So I was delighted when the council put together its bid for the Penistone line, and since David Shepherd has taken a little bit of flack from the public today, I'd like to thank him for all of his work on that and all of the work that his team put into it. That bid was rejected twice and then accepted on the third go, and we were, of course, delighted when it was. So I was shocked when Councillor McKirker and I were informed shortly after the general election that there wasn't actually any funding that had been handed over or indeed allocated to the Penistone line upgrade, and it was potentially at threat before the government's recent budget, and was of course delighted when that was announced in the recent budget. So I was just wondering if you're aware of any other schemes that were potentially at risk or might continue to be at risk, and if you would commit today to working with us as you did on the Penistone Line scheme to make sure that that continues to receive the support that it deserves.
Thank you. Firstly, apologies for ignoring you. I obviously did have something on my mind. But honestly, wasn't that fantastic? Because we saw that the previous government had promised 3 times over the contingency fund in the first 3 months. This was just fantasy economics. So to get a chancellor that really heard the campaigning voice of our region and commit £47 million to the Penistone Line was a real breakthrough. When we know the 22 million black hole, so many other schemes, we've lost a couple of schemes in Leeds, you know, lots of schemes were under threat. And to get that commitment, and like I say, that recommitment to the Transpennine upgrade, and mass transit was also mentioned, I think that commitment to transport in our region was very clear. But 47 million is, you know, it's half of what we need. So we're in conversations with South Yorkshire and with others to try and put that package together, because what you don't want is something that starts half-heartedly and then doesn't get delivered, because actually the people of Kirklees need that Penistone Line, because we know it's just outrageous that it takes as long as it does to get to neighbouring cities like Leeds and like Sheffield and elsewhere. It's holding us back, it's holding back our growth. So thank you for your commitment, and Councillor Turner's and others, to get that in the budget. That was quite a coup and a bit of a surprise when we heard it. So that was really good for us. So thank you very much for all that you do, and obviously we'll keep up the pressure.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, please.
Hi Tracy, and you'll be pleased to know that Greens are now represented on the combined authority following the elections. We gained a few seats as well, so I'll see you at the next combined authority meeting.
Democracy is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So a couple of questions really about climate change and the work that's going on from the combined authority on it. You've got a solar scheme, Solar Together. One of the disappointments is that there isn't necessarily opportunities for local installers from West Yorkshire to be involved in it, because it's not that sort of scheme. So I'm just wondering what you can do to try and get more local installers involved in the Solar Together scheme, and so that helps local jobs, because it doesn't quite work that way at the moment. And the other thing to mention, I think, is you've talked about insulation of all social homes by 2028. Given that there's a target for all social homes to have Energy Performance Certificate C by 2028 anyway, isn't it a target that you've given yourself that you were going to achieve, or the councils on your behalf were going to achieve in any case?
Thank you, Councillor. And certainly I thought you might be delighted about Solar Together, because I think that surely this is something you've been calling for many years since I've known you, and that the work and the commitment to tackling the climate emergency, I would suggest that we are absolutely in lockstep about what we want to achieve for our region. For those that don't know, the Solar Together scheme is part of the one-stop shop and our West Yorkshire Home Energy, that it is like a reverse auction, that communities can come together and collectively bid for solar panels. And because of the proportion of people wanting them, it reduces the cost. They also then are able to have them installed by installers that we ensure are not cowboys, and we want to make sure that that it's done properly. But as part of this as well, there is also the offer, you can get new windows, you could get a new boiler, you could get insulation in your roof. You don't have to have the full package, you could get a ground source heat pump. But part of the offer is also a fund where you can get a soft loan. And I've been so delighted that 4,000 people already have shown interest in Solar Together, and also that there's been a number of people that have taken the full package, that they've taken the loan that has then enabled them to get solar panels or the ground source heat pump, and the whole thing works in a really pleasing circle. It's part of our mission to get to zero carbon emissions by 2038. It's incredibly ambitious, and that's why we have been leading the march, working collectively with the mayors across the north to say to government, actually, you work with us, and collectively we can have greater impact. And we have a workshop with Ed Miliband coming up. I had a meeting yesterday with that department and saying to them, we're already doing retrofit. We don't want to wait till we get a single settlement in 26 to get more money for retrofit. Give us more money, we can turbocharge that to our target of 2038. And to the councillor's point that, well, isn't it easy to get to all social homes being retrofit? No, it takes leadership. And I hope that you see that in me and my office, we are absolutely leading on tackling the climate emergency. Thank you.
Councillor Lawson, please. John Lawson.
Thank you, Mayors, plural. Now, I'm on a bit of a speculative punt here, but bear with me, it gets there eventually. My question is about a regional approach to household waste and recycling. Kirklees recently closed Spen Valley's household waste and recycling centre due to financial constraints, as that was the reason. So we now have to drive, residents now have to drive up to 20 minutes to Dewsbury to use the centre there. The troubling aspect to this is that we're travelling away from the centres that are just over the border in places like Calderdale and Bradford. And they can be literally 5 minutes away, they can be closer than the old centre was. So I think my question is, do you have any thoughts on how we could work a bit smarter across the region when it comes to assets like household waste and recycling centres, and how we might be able to stitch that together in future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. And it is not something I know that Kirklees Council wanted to do, because what we all want to do is to ensure that people recycle and they have the opportunity to take their recycling to a waste centre. But to your point, it is something that is a live conversation. How we can consolidate, how we can work together and smarter, and to ensure that people take less trips to the tips, maybe, and just because it's over, it's 5 minutes away, maybe you take more trips than you would if it took a longer journey. But certainly that's a live conversation. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Habiban Zaman, please.
Hi, Tracy. You mentioned you're in regular contact with Arriva. So the recent proposal to withdraw the 212 service from Wakefield to Dewsbury will leave vulnerable individuals, the elderly, school children, patients needing to get to the hospital appointments without public transport. So can you please address the lack of alternative public transport, the options that are going to be available to the residents, and how they're going to be able to access healthcare without undue hardship? And can you urge Arriva to reconsider this service, and particularly for those that are going to be at risk of social isolation?
Thank you, Councillor. And I know that you do a great deal of work in the community to tackle social isolation. But just to reassure you, as I said in my opening remarks, we've had a positive response to the tenders to run the 212. So it may not be Arriva that runs it, but there will be another company running it. And it's very interesting that Arriva might be saying these routes aren't cost effective and they're not profit making, and yet when we're putting them out to tender, other companies want them. So it's very interesting that I'm not sure what their rationale is, but it does seem to be that it is not fit for purpose across some of our patch, and particularly in Wakefield. The people of Wakefield are having a really tough time with Arriva. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arshad, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Madam Mayor Tracy.
and congratulations on your re-election. I need to bring up the issue of the ringway on the Greenway in Heckman Wyke. These are pledges made by myself, yourself, and our MP as well. Not only that, but 3 years ago we were told to sleep soundly because the work has already started. Thus that then means to me that the money was allocated. So because these are our pledges all the way down the chart, and it is a Labour government, it is a Labour mayoral element, and it is a Labour local council as well. Can we now ensure that all the planets and the arrows are aligned to actually get this done? Because these are our pledges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I know that Councillor Patterson is very interested in the Greenway, and we certainly, when it comes to active travel, are looking at how we align our ambitions for mass transit and active travel as well. So that may be some of the frustrations that you're seeing. And I hope that you contributed to the consultation on mass transit, because that will have come through some of that patch. So hopefully, whilst that consultation is closed, I'm hoping that you did contribute, because your voice is as important as anyone else's.
Thank you. Councillor Moz-Khan, please.
Okay, thanks, cheers. Hi Tracy, thank you for coming today. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon about buses because over the years in the Dalton ward we've experienced more and more cuts to services, and now we've got the bare threads particularly in Kirklees. That village is highly dependent on an efficient bus service. I've had reports of young people during the summer crying at bus stops because they're going to be late for an exam. Elderly people who volunteer in the village at the thriving community centre, which yourself have visited on more than one occasion. They can't get there, and people can't get there to access those services. At the moment, the greatest threat to the village is a lack of reliable bus services, and the remaining bus services, there seems to be no accountability. I'm glad you're cynical about Arriva. I share that cynicism because the remaining bus services have been incredibly unreliable, and we've sent in lots and lots of complaints to Arriva, copied yourself in, and they all seem to be falling on deaf ears. So please, can you just bear in mind it's not just Dewsbury and Batley. We're desperate for a decent bus service in the Dalton ward, particularly Kirklees.
Thank you, Councillor. And I know that Kirklees and Dalton, all around that area, they're thriving communities that need bus networks. That's why we took the decision to bring buses back into public control, because buses should be for the public and not for profit.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Thompson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Tracy.
Evening.
One of the words used earlier in your presentation was the word delivering, and I'd like to go back to one of your main pledges from your last campaign, which was to deliver a serious violence strategy. Hopefully that was to reduce it, not increase it. But what I have noticed in West Yorkshire, that there are a couple of the boroughs, and hoping that the other three don't fall into the same pattern, which is one of them has since that campaign started, has had a 44% rise in violent crime. And another one of the boroughs is now ranked as one of the most violent cities in England. There's another one also that's ranked in the top 30 of most violent cities in Europe. And I just wondered how differently you're going to deliver a serious violence strategy over the next few years? Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. And the serious violence strategy and the approaches for this police and crime plan. So we are out to consultation on that plan. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that and what you're seeing in your community. What I would urge councillors to do is also, whilst reflecting the anxiety and the concerns about serious crime, also to reassure your constituents that, for example, knife crime, whilst any harm with a sharp object is unacceptable, that knife crime has fallen 10%. It's now slightly going the wrong way. So we are looking at what more we can do. But I would urge you all, as councillors, to please work with your communities to feed into this serious violence strategy. One of the outcomes from the work that we did focusing on the violence of women and girls, which was the previous strategy priority, we've set up the country's first ever women's safety unit, coming out of Baroness Casey's recommendations when she was analysing the Metropolitan Police Force in London. And we've had the first year of the Women's Safety Unit, and that has delivered incredible outcomes that I would be very happy to share with the council, which is why I have made the decision to continue that work. And it's in partnership, bringing together the police and crime team, Violence Reduction Partnership, and West Yorkshire Police to work collectively to have that public health approach, how we not only reduce crime, which is obviously important, but we improve the outcomes for the victims. And there is something reassuring, but we're not complacent, that the public, when asked their opinions about West Yorkshire Police, it is majoritatively positive, and particularly pleasing is the response when asked about the police responses to domestic violence. Women feel heard and they feel supported, and we have seen an improved outcomes, which means perpetrators being sent to prison for their crimes. But if I could also say, we have been innovative, and one example is smart water, which you may know you use on like bikes. If you have them stolen, the DNA stays on the bike. We've developed, it's like a DNA spray that victims of domestic violence, when the perpetrator has an exclusion order, they have the spray that has then, it gets rid of the he said, she said about whether they had broken that order. And we've had our first conviction. And the very fact that victims are getting access to this spray has also reduced repeat offending from perpetrators by nearly 50%. Now, I don't know about you, I think that's pretty impactful. And also, getting a focus on stalking, which you will know, on the timeline to femicide. Stalking is very early on in the timeline, and that if you're stalked, that can often lead to the worst outcome. We want to stop the stalking. We had low numbers of stalking protection orders in West Yorkshire. We have the highest number of stalking protection orders this police force has ever seen. So I would be happy to go into more detail about what we've delivered in our police and crime plan, but the idea that we are a region where crime is running wild, I would say that is not necessarily the truth. And for me, it's also important to not only keep people safe, but to enable them to feel safe, because sometimes feeling unsafe is also limiting people's freedoms, and they're staying in when they could go out. They're anxious about what's happening down their street. We want to empower people to be out and to enjoy everything that Kirklees has got to offer. And that's why I might say, just very quickly, Chair, thank you to everybody that was part of our Reclaim the Night March in the park a couple of weekends ago. Over 200 people joined us, loads of stalls, lots of people contributed, saying the clocks go back, but that doesn't mean to say we can't go out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Marchington, please.
Tracy, Andrew, Thank you. Question about the adult education budget. So we've been reassured that the rewind of the adult education budget tender process isn't going to cost any higher education or further education colleges anything, so they won't be putting anything. But I can just ask what the cost of the rewind has been for the combined authority.
Thank you. May I ask, Andrew, are you a provider?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So for those that don't know, the adult education budget, we've delivered £70 million of adult education, and there was a small pot, £7 million, that was allocated. There was the potential for a legal challenge, and rather than wait and delay the delivery of these programs, we took the decision to start again, which meant there was a delay. My understanding is it's not consequential financially, but I will look into that for you and I will get back to you. But it's really important for me to reassure the council that the priority is to get those training programs out. And what we've done in order not to slow down any of that learning is we've added additionality to other providers. So we've ensured that there is still that provision going forward, whilst there was just the slight rewind, as you said. But the most important thing for me is to deliver those courses, because I am committed to a region of learning and creativity, and you can't do that if we're sat on money. It's got to get out the door, it's got to go to the right providers who are going to deliver. We have far too few people at level 4, but that also means getting people onto level 2 and level 3. So thank you for your question. I'm very happy to give additional detail.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I start by thanking Tracy for your attendance tonight? My question is 2 parts and relates to the Trans-Pennine Rail route, which runs through my ward and the rest of Kirklees. Firstly, from December next month, there will be no direct train services from Slough and Marsden to Leeds. It's the first time there'll be no direct services from the Colne Valley to Leeds since 1982. This won't just affect commuters, but will also have an effect on the wider economy of West Yorkshire. I appreciate it's not your direct responsibility, but would you be able to commit to raising this with Trans-Pennine Express at the earliest possible opportunity? And if it's too late to change it for the upcoming timetable change, would you be able to ask Trans-Pennine Express to rectify this change at the earliest opportunity? And secondly, the Chancellor of the Exchequer in her budget last month pledged to fully fund the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. This is welcome investment not just in Colne Valley, but in the whole of Kirklees, including making Marsden and Slough stations fully accessible and fully electrifying the line from Huddersfield to Manchester. One of the things that local campaigning group Slough and Marsden Action on Rail Transport have been pushing for is increasing the capacity of passenger stopping services from Slough and Marsden to Leeds and Manchester to at least 2 per hour. Prior to Trans-Pennine Express being taken into public ownership last year, our residents had to put up with a rail service that was less reliable than that of Ukraine. So I think it's reasonable to expect some benefits for our commuters relative to the amount of disruption they've experienced recently. It is part of the West Yorkshire Rail Plan. Would you be willing to raise this with the Trans-Pennine route upgrade and ministers as soon as possible to see if we can try and get some kind of benefit for residents in our ward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And it is my ward as well, so thank you for that. Well, the good news is that December the 12th, there are now going to be every 15 minutes Leeds to Manchester. They're going to be leaving on the clock, so on the quarter hour, so people can remember that. I'm a bit bemused by the no stopping in Slough, so I'm going to take that up with Trans-Pennine Express. But I commute from Slough, and I don't find it onerous at all to change at Huddersfield, because it's just on the other side of the platform and the train is in 5 minutes. But I will take that away. I was with Chris, who is the CEO of Trans-Pennine. He knows I live in Slough. He didn't tell me that, if that is the truth. So I'm definitely going to have a word with him if he was just very cynically just been not telling me the truth, but telling me what I wanted to hear. So I'll take that up. But I think the good news story is every quarter hour. Also, whilst that upgrade is really important for accessibility, it's part of our greater plan across West Yorkshire. We have 2 fuse stations that are accessible, and I remember the really moving story. I was approached by a Paralympian who was stuck at Dewsbury Station because the lift was broken. So we have to really be very determined in our mission to make sure that all stations in West Yorkshire are accessible. But what's also very exciting about TransPennine Upgrade, where else are there these fantastically huge infrastructure projects being built? I mean, I can only think of London, and we've got TransPennine Upgrade, nearly 5,000 engineers, and then we're on our way with mass transit. We are going to be the home of engineering, and in our growth plan that we're submitting to government, in the Venn diagram of all of our corridors and specialisms and clusters sits the engineer. And we are, with devolved powers over the adult education budget, we are able to develop that pipeline of talent of engineers and traffic planners and all of that in readiness for all of this boom in engineering in our region. Because, of course, TransPennine Upgrade is a number of years of work and, unfortunately, a number of years of disruption as well. But can I thank the people of West Yorkshire who've been very patient, not helped by previously TransPennine Express being run so poorly. One thing that I have raised that might be of interest to the councillor, in an emergency meeting of the Northern Rail Committee, we asked why, if Northern and TransPennine are both in public control, why can't you use your ticket if there's a delay on one service or the other? So I think they're looking at that, because it seems crazy, doesn't it? And I know that Lou Haig, the Shadow Secretary of State for Transport, is also looking at those people who are getting really big fines and sentencing for ticket evasion, when sometimes it's just because the service isn't working. So I do think we do have a Secretary of State that has the passenger in the front of her mind. I have the passenger, as I am one as well, in the front of my mind. And I think with the new station in Bradford, with mass transit, with White Rose, with the TransPennine Upgrade, I think we're going to be at the dawn of a golden age of engineering in our region, and hopefully that will deliver that London-style transport network that I've been so clear is my priority.
Thank you. Councillor Crook, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and hello, Tracy. Welcome to Kirklees. Thank you for coming. So I was going to ask a question about the Penistone line, but I think that's been covered. I wanted to just bring to attention the importance of that line, because it is perpendicular to the TransPennine Upgrade, and so important that we get that link between Kirklees and Sheffield, or the West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the South Yorkshire Combined Authority, if you prefer to look at it that way. So fantastic that you've recommitted to supporting the further investment that's required on that line. So I was really pleased to be able to join you and so many others in Greenhead Park at the Reclaim the Night event recently. I was there to represent my daughter, who I would like to have a different future. One of the ways that we can reclaim public spaces for girls is by investing in infrastructure in those spaces, so that they have agency and ownership of those spaces from a young age. We've got a fantastic team here in the Parks and Green Spaces team, who brought to my attention a charity called Make Space for Girls, which has done research into that type of provision and the impact that can have over time. So I would love to hear your views on that, and whether you are willing to commit in that way to the younger generation, so that they have a different future going forward in terms of their perception of public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And of course, you were so welcome, and it was great to see you. And the men in this room are allies and supporters, and thank you for your support. But if it's safe for women, it's safe for everyone. So we're not just doing it for women, we're doing it for everyone, so that they feel confident going to parks and public spaces. As part of our strategy for safer women and girls, we actually funded research from Leeds University, Safer Parks work. and fantastic wide consultation. And that work has been so admired that it's been used across Europe, in Scotland, down in Cornwall, and it is about the design of parks. And seemingly young girls like to be high up, they like to be able to see. They don't want the entrance to a fenced-off space having one entrance, one exit. They like two, one entrance, one exit on opposite sides, not by the street where a van could wait. All of these things that sadly young women think about when they're choosing to go to a park. Because I've said this often, it absolutely is heartbreaking that as young women grow up, their world shrinks to their bedroom, whereas for boys, it widens out to the wider world. We can't allow that to happen. And as the first ever female Metro Mayor, I'm now no longer that title, having 2 more female Metro Mayors, thank goodness. I do feel if we can't do it, who can? So I would say, Councillor, if you'd also, as an ally, share the Just Don't campaign, which is also tackling male behaviour. You are all our allies, and it's saying that banter is not acceptable because banter can escalate into serious violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony Smith, please.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome, Tracy. Hello. You may remember last year when you came, we extended an invitation to come and visit us in Lindley at some point. I'll just remind you that that invitation stands.
Oh, blimey, I'm so sorry. I've got to definitely come now. When's your light switch on? When's your light switch on?
That's a challenging story this year for many reasons.
Oh, sorry. Have I said something I shouldn't?
Yeah. You've hit a bit of a nerve there, but
anyway. It's been cut. Oh, apologies.
Tracy, you may also remember that when you last attended this chamber, I raised our group's concerns about traffic safety, road and traffic safety. It was an issue that was tragically illustrated by a fatality on the edge of the Lindley ward just prior to your attendance here. I'm also sad to hear today that there has been a child has been knocked down outside one of our local primary schools in Lindley just today. I, my ward colleague, Councillor Burke and Councillor Robinson, and indeed each of my Lib Dem colleagues were therefore delighted to see the launch of the Mayor's Vision Zero strategy this summer, and we welcomed the initiative's aims. The Kirklees Lib Dem group were equally pleased with the opportunity to engage positively with Vision Zero and to receive a presentation from the Mayor's Vision Zero policy manager. Do you believe you are getting the required engagement and buy-in from all council groups to ensure the benefits of Vision Zero are delivered to all our communities, and particularly in Kirklees? And could you also share with us any updates on how you see Vision Zero being realised in Kirklees in the coming weeks, months and beyond? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor, and thank you for your desire, as I have, to have 0 deaths and serious injury on our roads across West Yorkshire. And it's Road Safety Week next week, so you might be interested maybe to reshare the Vision Zero content. And I'm really pleased that only yesterday in Ashbrow, there was a police I'm searching for the word. Not a programme, but a police intervention where they were stopping taxis and they were stopping cars just to get, because part of the Vision Zero is not just about pedestrians, it's also about cars being fit for purpose. And the Ashbrow intervention, there was a couple of taxis that had failures in their cars, and there was a couple of cars not taxed and some mobile phone use. This is slow incremental work, but it's really, really important. Also, I've been investing in walk to school programs to try and get cars away from school gates, because we know that too often it's just convenient for parents when they're on their way to work, but we have to ensure that school gates are safe for children. We've got Dr. Ian Greenwood. I don't know if you know him, but he's got lived experience, having lost his daughter to a tragic road accident. and he is a real champion and advocate. And can I say to all councillors, if you have anybody in your ward that is willing to speak from their lived experience, we would be really, really grateful that they could come on this Vision Zero journey with us. And I just hope that you see my determination to get change using this money we've invested in Vision Zero by asking Alison Lowe, my Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, to chair Vision Zero. So I hope you see that how serious we are in getting change, because one death and one serious injury is one too many. And the offer is there for all councillors. I know how busy everyone is, but to get that learning, to take that package and to help us, because I have to say, as the Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen, I've sat in too many front rooms listening to families who've lost loved ones due to speeding cars and poor driving. And I know that there are other things that we can be doing, but that if you can feed in specifically, whether that's calming, road calming. I know that there is talk about extra CCTV and so on. We're very happy to work with you. Your knowledge is better than mine. You know exactly where those dangerous roads are. But I can't do this on my own. We have to do this collectively.
Thank you. Councillor Itrat Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tracy, if I may?
Yes, of course.
I've got 2 points that I'd like to make. I think the first one you've just covered in one of the previous questions, so I won't labour it too intensively. But I just wanted to congratulate you on the sterling work that you've done with regards to safety of women and young girls. And in particular, I know the event in Huddersfield was mentioned, and I think previous to that, there was something last year that you did over in Bradford, the project that you did. So it's really refreshing to see, and I'm glad that you prioritised it, and I was surprised you didn't mention it in your presentation. What I'd like to ask is, with regards to the rest of Kirklees, so Dewsbury, Murfield, where I represent and live, what plans are there to prioritise the safety within parks, in particular with the demise of Dewsbury Sports Center? I think it's even more imperative that women and, well, young girls and older girls like myself have access and feel safe in parks for recreation purposes. I know you mentioned the layout of the parks and the equipment. I think it goes a bit further. I'd like to see real commitment with regards to you working as a multidisciplinary team and with the police force to see more regular patrolling of those spaces, so parks and the Greenway, which was mentioned earlier, which are used by cyclists, runners, walkers, particularly as the nights are darker. So I'd like to see real commitment, particularly that part of Kirklees. And my second point, again, I think Councillor Habiban Zaman touched upon it with regards to access to healthcare by bus routes. My question is, just recently I was contacted by a resident in Murfield, an NHS worker, a care worker working at Dewsbury Hospital on minimum wage, doing a fantastic job, having to change 3 buses just to get to Dewsbury Hospital for a day's work and then back. Financially, it's not viable for her to do that. So I know you said that there's the Mayor's Fair. I'd like to see it taken further and have some commitment, particularly for healthcare workers that need to access their place of work, to have some subsidy in terms of that, because not only is it a financial constraint in the monetary value, but it's actually a constraint in terms of time. Changing 3 buses is actually an extra hour that it's taking her to get to work and back. That's an extra hour of childcare she's paying for. So I'd be interested to hear your views on both of those.
Thank you so much. Just to that particular case, that's why I was very keen that the M card, that the day saver is any bus, anywhere, any number of times, because I know there are people, she'll be going to work and maybe using 3 buses, but she might also then be going, I don't know, to see her elderly mum or go to a class or pick up her kids. So if you could encourage her to go onto the app, you can get the day saver, and it's not a single fare on each bus. It's a really cheap and cost-effective way to do it. Also, I've been very aware, particularly with the cost of living crisis and the rates that apprentices get. We now, we've passed at the Combined Authority, we approved £100,000 for apprentices to get the first 3 months free travel, because we know that that can be a problem for apprentices when they're getting started into a new job, getting used to going to work, but also the cost of it. So also Project Hope, that care leavers also get access to that offer as well, that free bus. So I'm hoping that she'll maybe be able to take up the day saver. But to your point about parks, what was really interesting at the Greenhead is that there's a group of volunteers, and we funded their shirts, and they're really vivid green shirts, so that they can be seen around the park, because what girls and women were telling us, they feel safe when they see other people there. And there is now there's the demise of the old-fashioned parkie, but being able to have people in the park who are volunteers, I think is really important. So Councillor Ali, if you want to write to me about particular issue in which particular park, obviously Kirklees will be looking at that. But if there's anything further that we can do, if there's a volunteer group that need a bit of support, maybe the Mayor's Community Safety Fund, there's £8,000 grants, £10,000 grants, so that might be something that you have a group that would like to apply to get some support.
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick, we have, I think, 3 minutes, so make it quick.
I'll try my best, but it isn't my forte, Madam Mayor. Tracy, lovely to see you. I want to talk about 2 different meetings, but I think are very relevant to your role that I recently attended. One some time back was a meeting that Alison Lowe chaired, where she was talking to young people about their perception of crime, whether they felt safe, ASB and so on. And it was an excellent meeting. I assume I was invited not because I'm a young person, but because of my cabinet role. Hey-ho. There were several schools represented there. You could see pupils were in school taking part, and it was really good. Sadly, no schools from Kirklees. And you may not be able to answer this. I would love for there to be further meetings, because I think the information was invaluable, and I would do everything I can to encourage Kirklees schools to attend. That was one meeting. The other meeting, more recently, was a contact I had from Councillor Gwen Lowe at Northern Rail, and I met with a representative from there about what they could do for our care leavers. And it was a really positive meeting in terms of awareness raising about their setup, about possible training, experiences and information about employment for care leavers. So my second question is, would you raise that with TransPennine and any other public services that might be of use to our care leavers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And can I say, whilst Councillor Lowe isn't here, I want to congratulate her and her leadership for the work that she's done with Friends of Batley Station, because I know that volunteering has been incredible, and I definitely can raise that with TransPennine. I know that Northern Rail do a lot in the community and are to be applauded for that, but often they're a different team, so you can applaud them for their community work and then be really cross that they're not delivering the trains. But I will raise that. And yes, I am surprised that there are no young people from Kirklees, because I know that you have a great engagement in the work that comes out of the Combined Authority. Just to say also that we have a schools team, and if your school in your patch isn't signed up to what's called Pol Ed, which is a training program delivered, it's free, and most of the schools in West Yorkshire are signed up to it, but it is about consent and about healthy relationships, about the world of the internet and sexting, stuff like that. But that's a free programme that we have been delivering with West Yorkshire Police in schools. So I would encourage all schools to get involved in opportunities. I was really pleased that all schools across our patch and wider West Yorkshire took the opportunity to get involved with Poetry Week in the Mayor's Young Poet Laureate with Simon Armitage, the son of Kirklees, and the Poet Laureate, and that was so successful. We had 2 Poet Laureates that were with us for a year from a primary school and a secondary school, and they delivered poems and they were commissioned to write poems. It was so successful, the Arts Council are now rolling it out across the country, and we're doing it again. So we have whilst I don't have responsibility for schools, we do have a lot of opportunity to work with schools, and just for our friends, the Greens in the corner, we're also working with primary school children to talk about green jobs. Obviously, it's not just for the Greens, it's for all of us, but that we are focusing on where we can have great interventions in schools. Whilst not my remit, happy to get as many youngsters round the table as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tracy. That brings us nicely to the end of the key discussion debate. So could I just thank Tracy for taking time out this evening and coming to speak to us. I think it's been a productive and interesting discussion. So thank you, Tracy, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to go back to agenda item 9, which is the petition debate on Dewsbury Sports Center. So following the submission of a petition which exceeded 3,000 signatures in respect of the future of Dewsbury Sports Center, a petition debate shall now take place. I shall invite the organiser of the petition, Councillor Bramwell, to make a representation to the meeting for a maximum of 5 minutes, and then the council may debate the petition for a maximum of 15 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Bramwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have a speech that I prepared, but to be honest with you, I'd rather just wing it and just talk. So I'm speaking directly to Cabinet, seeing as Cabinet made a decision last week to close Dewsbury Sports Centre, of which I believe, many councillors believe, many residents believe that you made a very negligent and a wrong decision in doing that last week. And what I would like to speak to you today about is my experiences and give you a little bit of education of growing up in Dewsbury, especially to the Cabinet, all being Huddersfield residents. So by the time I reached the age of 14 in the area that I live, which is Dewsbury Mall, which is what I am a councillor of at the moment, by the time I'd reached 14 years old, I had already been involved and experienced antisocial behaviour. I'd been involved in gangs. I had been subject to substance abuse issues and a range of different abuses. That was the social needs in my area, living in Dewsbury Mall, by the time I was 14 years old. The only people that came into my life as a young person were the Kirklees Council youth workers. They were the first people that made me believe I was more than what I thought I was at 14 on the path I was heading towards, which was not the path I'm on now. It was completely opposite. Not only did they change my life, they are one of the reasons I'm stood here in this capacity today, I've no doubt, alongside the teachers that I had. And the reason I'm raising this is those youth workers took me from that estate that I'd only ever known, to Dewsbury Sports Centre, and it was there that I found my love of football. It was there that I joined a football team. It was there I went and travelled to Holland. I travelled to America. I did and saw so many opportunities because the Sports Centre bridged that gap. We've heard for over a year campaigners walk into here crying and begging and letting you guys know what this means, this closure means to them. When you hear of Dewsbury Sports Centre, you hear the gym, you hear the swimming pool. We know exactly how much this sports centre bridged the gap through mental health, through physical health. But the one thing that needs to be taken into account today is how many opportunities are going to be lost on the youth of today because of this closure. I could not make this clearer to you guys. The sports centre bridged the gap with young people. When the youth centre closed in the council over a decade ago, third sector organisations that were created again by residents bridged that gap, and they used and utilised the sports centre for a number of reasons. It is our young people that you have let down. It is the next lot of voters that you've let down. It is the future generation of doctors. It's a future generation of teachers. It's a future generation of youth workers that you have failed in closing this sports centre. And you know what you should recognise today? You should recognise the fact that when you've walked into this council chamber today, there was a lobby outside. There was a lobby of residents, dementia care home, Dewsbury Sports Center, Batley Baths, Palestine supporters, because residents have had enough. Residents are fighting back. They set a campaign up called Stop the Closures. This was prioritised, it was motivated, these residents have become educated, they're following council protocol, despite the fact that they're all living in areas high in deprivation, because we have thankfully seen the light. The residents have seen that they have got to mobilise themselves and fight back. And when it comes to hearing and listening to residents, the consultation in the Dewsbury Sports Centre process was the most filed consultation. The amount of people that reached out and consulted to the council to hear their voices heard following council protocol was enormous, and it was pushed aside whilst this decision was made and this closure has gone forward. So our residents will continue to be heard. They'll be heard at protests, they'll be heard at rallies, and eventually they'll be heard at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramwell. I'm going to open this up now to the floor. So, Councillor Cathy Scott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll cut this brief because I do realise there's a lot of people here. But I'll start this debate by paying tribute to incredible figures who have put Dewsbury on the map, shaped the town's proud sporting heritage. So I'm going to speak about Mr. Grimes, a name fondly remembered for many who dedicated his life teaching swimming at Dewsbury Pool. Eileen Fenton, a remarkable swimmer who braved the channel and made history. Then I move on to Jean Olroyd, which I meet for coffee every Thursday, the Olympic athlete who represented Dewsbury with great distinction at the Commonwealth and European Championships. And let us not forget Jennifer Thompson, another shining star from our town who reached the heights of the Commonwealth Games. Dewsbury was once one of the finest swimming teams that were in Yorkshire. Teams without question far superior to Huddersfield, which we're finding at the moment. Dewsbury Sports Centre is not merely a facility, it's a cornerstone of our communities. It's a place where people of all ages come to exercise, socialise and learn, and in some cases it was their employment. It's an offer that's essential to the health benefits and particularly to our children whose swimming is a life-saving skill. The closure of this centre threatens the well-being of our entire town. So don't keep quoting the blueprint. We know the blueprint, it's years ahead. We are stripping away a crucial source of health and social activity. Is this in a rush to balance the books? We are going to pay the price, far greater in the future, in the health inequalities and the well-being of the residents of Dewsbury for generations to come. This closure exacerbates existing inequalities. There is missed opportunities presented by the Localism Act and the power of competence. This encourages councils to pursue community-led solutions. This was not explored. You're happy to write off millions in financial borrowing, demolition and extricating yourself from a 125-year lease. The report that you produced concludes that there was no presence of RAC on the dry side of the sports centre. Despite this, you had no plans to reopen the dry side. You could have explored more. Why is Kirklees not doing more to save Dewsbury vital services? We need to rethink this decision about Dewsbury Sports Centre. It's not to be another casualty of short-term decisions by this cabinet making, and also it's about a beacon of hope for health for our town today and for its future. Let us reopen the dry side even and work on a solution for the swimming pool. And just to know, I think it's really poignant today. We have the administration sat there, and I know there's no money, I know there's tough decision, but when your colleagues are laughing and smiling, making gestures because other councillors are getting up and speak, shame on you. Community Alliance have put in a calling request, and it has been signed, so it was put through yesterday, just so that you know.
Councillor John Lawson, please.
Thank you, Matt. Singular. Yes, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of Dewsbury Sports Center and the way it's used and what it means, how valuable it is to the local residents. There are people across the chamber who know far more than me. But I do wholeheartedly disagree with Cabinet's decision to take option 4A, which was to close Dewsbury Sports Centre with no investigation into any kind of rebuild for the foreseeable future. I believe it's extremely short-sighted because sooner or later you'll probably have to end up providing one anyway. Maybe that'll happen before the next election, maybe it won't. I've said before that I think it's unthinkable that an urban centre the size of Dewsbury shouldn't have an authority leisure offer that benchmarks quality and opens up healthy life opportunities for everyone. And I'd echo the thoughts about the aspect of a social and community dynamo, an engine, if you will, that's more than the sum of its parts in that sports centre. And that is very, very valuable. It's something we often overlook. And as we've seen elsewhere in North Kirklees, the current administration seems to have signed up to an unwritten strategy of starve and merger. Red House Museum is going for auction, Spenborough Town Hall awaits its fate, the HWRC at Birstall is now shut, and Dewsbury Leisure Centre is closed for good. At the same time, the administration is doing some hard borrowing for Huddersfield Town Centre, and will be paying for that for the next 50 years. I'm becoming increasingly concerned that the Huddersfield blueprint and the cultural heart spending is now happening at the expense of the other parts of the borough, and that it's taking up flexibility in the capital plan, and I'm concerned about whether or not principles of best value are being adhered to by this administration. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Dewsbury. For many years, Dewsbury and the council around Dewsbury have tried to increase footfall. It seems to be all they do, and the pure focus of funding, grants, rebuilds, refurbs, containers put into the town. Everything revolves around footfall. What's interesting is, though, that Spen Valley Sports Centre now has a footfall of nearly 400,000 visits a year. And we've got Dewsbury Sports Centre that we've closed. I would say to you that Dewsbury Sports Centre would be the biggest attraction of footfall that Dewsbury could bring, unless we're going to build a shopping mall there. So I would say that the focus has been for too long on closing it and saving money, rather than looking at what the whole vision is of Dewsbury, which is to get people back into the town. I think there has to be a rethink on funding. There has to be a rethink on what we're spending money in Dewsbury. And we really have to look at, if we're honestly looking at footfall, we have to look at refurbing and reopening Dewsbury Sports Centre. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Darren O'Donovan, please.
Thanks, Mayor. It's been really interesting hearing people's perspective on this issue, not just today, but on previous times that this issue's come to council. I just want to share my perspective, because my perspective's as unique as everybody else's, really. But Dewsbury Sports Centre was part of my DNA, part of my blood. The swimming pool was opened in 1974. My parents told me they took me there in 1976. I was born in 75, took me swimming. I've done some nostalgic thinking, and I'm pretty sure that I used that sports in some way every single year from 1976 to the day it closed. in some shape or form. I worked there for 15 years, through the 90s and early 2000s. I was there in 1991 when the Sheffield World Student Games used Dewsbury Sports Center as their base for volleyball. I was there in 1986 where world snooker champion Dennis Taylor came for an exhibition match. I was there in 2014 when Gary Sykes won the British super featherweight title. I've been to Christmas parties there. I've done sessions with the Owls. I've done sessions with the Pals. I've dove in that pool a number of times to pull little kids out the pool. A number of things over that time. It is in my blood. It is in my DNA. Nothing would have pleased me more, and we had loads of conversations about this, to save that place. I know the people. I knew the people that worked there from its early days to its latter days. I knew them as best friends. But I'm pragmatic. And when I spoke to Cabinet members, Councillor Turner, and I looked at the figures, hoping for a way forwards, you can't disagree with the figures that are in front of you, regardless of the emotional attachment that I have to the place. There was rack in the wet side. The wet side is an old building, long gone of its useful asset days, and there was rack. A responsible authority, whatever the building that has rack, you have to close that building. Councillor Scott's right, there's no rack in the dry side, but what we know from the papers and what I know from working there is that the boiler that services the dry side is in the wet side and almost at the end of its life, and not the £3,000 that it would cost for a boiler in our homes, many, many, many more thousands than that. There's no public lift in the dry side to take people up and down and into the building. The dry side needs a complete rewire. It looks like it's in good condition, but it needs work doing to it if it was going to be open to the public. The swimming pool housed the reception to the sports centre. So the sports centre had no reception with which you could enter the building, pay your money, swipe your cards for security, etc. There's maybe none. I'm going to say none actually. There's no windows in the dry side. There's no windows to the outside in the dry side. The dry side is not a building that could have been opened cheaply and quickly. I saw the numbers, millions of pounds to do it, millions of pounds that if we had, and there was no rack in this site, you could do it. Nobody wants to be here. Whichever party was in power of this council at this time would have been faced with the same problems. Nobody created this problem of rack. Nobody created the problem of the sports centre. The sports centre were built by Leo Supermarket, those that remember. Leo Supermarket underneath. They built the sports centre for us. Nobody could have predicted that in the 70s and the 80s, but it's where we are. To borrow the kind of money that you would need, it pays me to say it, to do the things to the dry side that need to be done, you put this council in massive risk and jeopardy financially. Pretty much bankrupting the council to borrow that kind of money over that number of years to do that kind of work. And if the numbers were different, I think we were saying we'd do it. Nothing would please me more than getting that building back open again, people using it again, getting people working back there again. I worked there. Andrew Carden, that works for the council, worked there. Graham Bruce, Vicky Bruce worked there as well. So the presence of rack, the costs of bringing that dry side into safe public use are accurate, but they are entirely unaffordable for a council that has to balance books. This cabinet has to balance books. Nobody else in this room has to balance the books of the council. And if we don't, there are repercussions of doing that. Failing that, you'd have to close 2/3 of council services in order to just pay for the capital cost of the sports centre and the running costs of it. And clearly nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to lose all the other services of the council. So I'll leave that there with people. It's a numbers game. Rack is not safe, but, you know, it pays me to say it, but it's just not safe. The money's just not there to do the work.
Thank you. Councillor Addy, please. You have got about 2 minutes, sorry.
I think Councillor O'Donovan has said much of what was needed to be said. I have to say, though, this is not a choice. This is not something we've picked out of the air and was said, let's close Dewsbury Sports Centre. The rack is real. The figures are real. The dry side was in no state to open on its own. It wouldn't have just been a case of turning around and opening the doors. Nothing can take away the pain of the loss of a centre which holds such nostalgic and important memories that's influenced so many people's lives. We can't take that away. What we can only do is look to the future. We can look to new opportunities. Cal's repurposed at other sites. There are facilities available. People will make new opportunities, and in the council we've taken an audit of the various opportunities that are available in Dewsbury. We're hoping Sports England will see the importance in the research we want to carry out and fund that. We will be making new opportunities. We will be looking after people's public health and the communities, the activities in the communities that the council is always keen to support will be key to that, because some of those happen right in the communities, and that's where we want to take things to the heart of communities. Into the future, it may be something we can look to look at more pool provision, but we do have more pool provision across Kirklees than most other councils. As I say, nothing can take the pain, the loss of something that people feel like they've always had, but we must look to the future.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. That brings us to the end of the petition debate for the Dewsbury Sports Centre. Thank you.
Yes, may I make an application for a point of order like we did last month to move the agenda so that items 12 and 13 can be heard today. And the items 10 and 11 be saved for another day, I think. Audit.
Just to clarify, that wouldn't be a point of order, Councillor Cahoot. That's a proposal to bring the agenda items forward. Do you have a seconder for that, please? Okay, thank you. We've got two seconders, Councillor Safdar and Councillor Lawson. We're going to take this to the vote. Can we vote by using our consoles, please? That is carried. So we are going to go straight to agenda item 12, which is a motion. Could I just ask the left side of the room, the left side to me, could you please pipe down? I'm sure you all want to stay for this debate. I don't want to have to remove people from the chamber. Thank you. Okay, so item 12, the motion is submitted in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 14 as to Gaza. A year on, urgent action is still needed. And Councillor Ali Arshad, you're the proposer of the motion. When you're ready.
Madam Mayor, thank you. From the motion, we would like to remove our ask that the Palestinian flag be flown at Huddersfield, Batley and Dewsbury Town Hall in an act of remembrance. So that aspect of it we would like to remove and revisit that in another motion another day. But in order to facilitate this motion, Madam Mayor and my fellow councillors, are we okay with that?
Yes, so my understanding would be that you're still moving the motion, but with that paragraph removed.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that okay to do in accordance? Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Is that?
Yeah, that's allowed, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is that seconded for the removal of that Councillor Safdar, thank you. Okay, please, Councillor Arshad, continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors. In the past weeks, I've attended 3 remembrance events, honouring those lost in wars of past. Each time I stood alongside our community observing silence. Life sacrificed and hearing words pledged never again. Yet here we are, living through a tragedy that no doubt we'll look back on tomorrow with the same sorrow, with the same horror, and with the same question. Did we do anything to stop it while we still had the chance? It is easy to remember those lost when the time has passed and the damage is done. But real remembrance, true honouring of those who are suffering before means using our voices now. Whilst the suffering in Gaza is happening in real time, we don't want to stand there in years to come from now and say, never again, to a crisis that we watched unfold and failed to confront when we had the power to speak out. I'm here today to bring forward a motion grounded in conscious humanity and responsibility. This isn't just a set of words on paper. It's a heartfelt call to action. It's a demand for justice and compassion, a refusal to stand by silently whilst Gaza suffers. Today we have the power to make a stand and to show that our council speaks for every resident who feels deeply for those affected in Gaza. And that's in all of our constituencies and our wards. A year has passed since the latest escalation in this conflict, and each day the tragedy in Gaza becomes more devastating. Tens of thousands of innocent men, women and children have been killed or grievously injured. Thousands more are buried in the rubble of what used to be their homes. Just imagine for a moment if this was our communities, flattened, bombed indiscriminately, entire families and lives erased in an instant. How would we live with ourselves if we had the chance to speak out, but we chose to stay silent instead? What's happening in Gaza isn't just an accident, it's deliberate and systematic. Schools, hospitals, refugee camps and places of worship are being targeted in clear defiance of the basic principles of international humanitarian law. The medical facilities that remain are struggling, nearly ripped of supplies, with essential aid that is being blocked. Families lack basic necessities, children are malnourished. This isn't a fight against combatants. It's a war on civilians, on entire generations, and enduring a humanitarian crisis of an unspeakable scale. Let's be clear, these are war crimes, crimes against humanity. The International Criminal Court and the United Nations have condemned these actions. But the violence and oppression continues. This is quite plainly a genocide. A term the International Court of Justice has used to describe this situation. It's happening in our time in front of our eyes. I know that many of you, like me, have been approached by our residents who are deeply disturbed by what they're seeing and hearing. People across Kirklees are distraught, calling us to speak up. As their representatives, it's our duty to bring these voices here to make them heard. This motion asks for our council's leadership to take real steps towards ending this silence. It calls on the Prime Minister to revoke arms licenses, intelligence and logistics to Israel until it complies with the international law and ends the occupation. It urges for aid to be allowed into Gaza without obstruction, because each day without it, it costs more lives and starvation. Untreated injuries and disease. It asks that every diplomatic avenue be pursued to secure a ceasefire and to bring Israeli hostages home safely. We're calling for peace on all sides, and we're calling for it now. Furthermore, this motion calls on our council to avoid wherever lawful purchasing of goods from companies profiting from illegal occupations. We must set an example of ethical sourcing and ensure our resources don't indirectly support injustice. Councillors, I urge you to reflect on the stark contrast in our government's response to Gaza compared to Ukraine. When Russia invaded Ukraine, our government acted swiftly, condemning the aggression, delivering aid, calling for accountability. But for Gaza, despite the clear suffering and law violations, the response has been subdued. This inconsistency troubles many of our residents who question why some lives are prioritized over others. By supporting this motion, we affirm that Palestinian lives deserve the same respect and urgency as any others, and that our commitment to justice is universal. I ask you to think carefully to weigh the decision in front of us. This motion is a chance to align our council with the values we hold dear: justice, peace, humanity. We have an opportunity to speak with a unified voice reaching beyond this room, showing the world that Kirklees stands for peace law and the end of suffering. As we sit asking for peace, the Israeli Knesset isn't asking for peace, and we have to align ourselves with the world. Let us not be passive in face of human tragedy. I ask for your support, your compassion, and your conscience as we take this step forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arshad. Is that seconded? Councillor Safdar.
I'm going to start with a very powerful quote, surprisingly from an Israeli objector. We must listen to the left-wing and progressive voices in Israel who are telling us all the future. The very brave and principled Gideon Levy, rather eye-opening this. He said that recently, he said, anyone who thinks that Israel will ever change course willingly of its own accord does not know this Israeli government very well. Israel, under this administration, has no reason and no incentive to do so. The world, many in the world rather, have accepted Israel and its apartheid and its oppression, while this right-wing Israeli government ignores respected international human rights organizations and decisions made in the UN. He used the word apartheid. It's a very powerful word, isn't it? A powerful lesson in history, a lesson taught us by the great Nelson Mandela, teaches us that apartheid regimes can only capitulate after strong boycotts. Let me remind everyone here that those boycotts in the 70s and 80s were backed by virtually every party in the mainstream here in the UK. Now, we are speaking here today because the occupation apartheid regime has effectively expanded its genocidal campaign of ethnic cleansing from Gaza to the West Bank and the Golan Heights. This matters because this is the Holy Land, a land that is treasured by so many people of faith from all three Abrahamic faiths. When this genocidal campaign is ignored, these war criminals are given impunity. This impunity stems from UK, US, UK, and you know what, I'm going to say something controversial here, UAE trade support. Just because I may come from that particular clan, I'm not going to hesitate to criticize. This support is tantamount to complicity. Now, complicity, that's a powerful word. We sadly, as a democracy, a respected democracy, and now have our government have blood on their hands. How can we, as a democracy, as a Western liberal, forward-thinking nation, lecture any foreign dictatorship on humanitarian rights when we are supplying parts for F-35 bombers that are used to murder innocent Palestinian children? These aren't collateral damage. This is ethnic cleansing taking place. We cannot have one set of strong sanctions for one occupying war criminal regime like the butcher Putin, and then a set of weak sanctions and measures towards the government in Tel Aviv. This two-tier approach by both ruling parties has caused a loss of trust in our democratic system and a loss of trust in some of our local and national leaders. In Gaza today, bodies are in pieces, hearts are in pieces, souls are in pieces. The reputation of our admired Western democracies, this democracy that I love, The reputation of our democracy is now in pieces across the global south. Where do we go after 17,000 infant deaths, children dying, orphans all over the occupied territories, orphans who have cousins grieving in Bethlehem? What answer will our parties give, will our party leaders give in the future to those thousands of orphans, those orphan amputees? Councils like ours may seem like a small organisation, but like Leeds today, or like Waltham Forest, all our councils, we are public organisations with big budgets. We must take action in our way, in our small ways. Leeds have today passed a motion to implement BDS. Now, I'm sorry, it's strange how legal hurdles, as mentioned by our leader, have been overcome by our friends in Leeds. Those sanctions against Russia, they were implemented overnight, and rightly so. The illegal invasion of Ukraine was wrong. The illegal occupation and invasion of the West Bank and Gaza is also wrong. We must listen to the ICJ. We, as Democrats, must implore our government not just to call for ceasefires, but take boycotts seriously. We must call for a Bosnia-style international peacekeeping force to protect children both sides of the border.
To confirm that you've seconded that motion as your time has come to an end.
I ask people across this chamber, go for a free vote, please. Ignore your party whips. Vote with the BDS motion. Thank you very much.
Councillor Safdar, could you just confirm you are seconding that? Thank you. Councillor Amin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not actually going to start by talking about Gaza. Instead, I'm going to reflect on what happened at the last council meeting, and I want to be clear and set the record absolutely straight for the communities who are listening out there. We did not vote for any motion. We voted whether motions would be brought forward on the agenda, similar to today. And actually, I'm actually appalled because certain individuals that are present today saw fit to produce a poster with photographs of myself and other Muslim colleagues stating that we refuse to vote for a motion for Israel boycotts. We put party before humanity, Starmer students and Zionist supporters. I mean, really? Seriously? How bloody dare you? This aim was to trick communities against us, and it also paints a very clear target on our backs. If any of us are attacked, then I hold the authors and those that conspired with them responsible. And I also ask the question, how would you feel if this was one of your loved ones? And I am actually happy to share this with the press as well. I must make it very clear today that no one has the right to judge anyone else. The only person who has that right is God. And to confirm that, the Quran contains several passages that relate to this. Surah Al-Hujurat 49.11, Allah says, "O you who have been believed, who believed, let not Can I speak without being interrupted?
Please
so
carry on, Councillor Amin.
Or you
Please,
who have been
members,
believed,
be mindful.
Or you who have believed, let not a person ridicule another people. Perhaps they may be better than them. That said, we're a year on, and the pain of seeing loss of innocent lives in Palestine and Gaza and the Middle East hurts. I don't want to quote too many statistics, but I will say that 40,000 people who have been killed, and of 70% of those are women and children, 44% are just children. And I struggle to see how this is acceptable. The level of destruction to infrastructure is deeply shocking. While I honestly support the principle of the motion today before you, I would take this opportunity to thank the leader, Carol, and the Deputy Leader, Moses, for their understanding and how we feel in terms of this motion and the effect the current situation has had on our communities. We've had open discussions, and they have listened, and they have actually agreed to a free vote today. So thank you. Unfortunately, point A of the motion clearly states the International Court of Justice has declared the situation in Gaza to be genocide. Actually, that's incorrect. They've said it's plausible. It's not a ruling, and in addition to that, the last paragraph of the motion, we can't ensure the council do this. They have contracts in place which will lead to legal battles, and in all fairness, it raises the authenticity of the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Amin. Councillor John Taylor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise today to address the motion before us, which accuses Israel of war crimes, breaches of international humanitarian law and genocide. Whilst I acknowledge the deep emotions and concerns that underpin this motion, I must oppose it for several reasons. To begin with, I believe it is critical to clarify that the International Court of Justice, the primary global institution responsible for investigating allegations of genocide, has not found Israel guilty of this charge. Genocide is a profoundly serious accusation, and it demands an equally serious standard of proof. Prematurely assigning such a label to a nation without a thorough and impartial investigation is not only misleading, but risks undermining the credibility of international law and our community to a fair and just assessment of the facts. Joan Donoghue, its president, stated, and I quote, "It did not decide. This is something where I'm correcting what's often said in the media, that the claim of genocide was plausible." A critical aspect of this conflict, which this motion has ignored, is the ongoing hostage crisis. As of now, approximately 97 individuals, including children and foreign nationals, remain captive in Gaza. They include a child, Kafir Bibas, who has spent more of his life in a terror tunnel than he has been breathing the air of freedom. It includes Emily Damery, a 28-year-old British citizen who was abducted from her home on the 7th of October. The abduction of innocent civilians from their homes or from a music festival is itself a war crime. Again, not mentioned in this motion. We need to see these hostages brought home safely. In fact, this would in itself, along with the surrender of Hamas, end the conflict and enable people to begin to rebuild their lives and homes both in Gaza and Israel, both of which have seen widespread displacement and destruction. The United Kingdom and Israel share a long-standing relationship grounded in democratic values and mutual respect. We recognise Israel's right to defend itself from terrorism, just as it advocates for the protection of all citizens.
Councillor Lawson. Sorry, Councillor Taylor, I'm just going to have to stop you there. Councillor Lawson and Councillor Darwan, could you please leave the chamber? No, she will be leaving the chamber because I've asked her to, and Councillor Lawson has respected that. And please, Councillor Darwan.
Because I've pressed this buzzer, I've wanted to talk for ages, and
Yeah.
I've not been able to.
No.
It's as if that you're just giving a lot of chance to your political...
Sorry, Councillor Darwan, I'm not going to have you accuse me of favouring one party over another. Myself and the Deputy Mayor, who happens to represent a different party, have based this entire meeting today on proportionality. I have warned everybody several times in various meetings that if you are going to be disruptive, I will ask you to leave the chamber. And I set out the rules quite clearly right at the beginning of tonight's meeting. So if you could please leave the chamber, or I will ask for you to be escorted out, because you are not respecting the chamber, because you have gone against what we said we'd be doing. We said we were going to be we said we were going to be respectful in this meeting, and I will need you to please remove yourself, Councillor Darwan.
Remove. I'll go myself, but I want to know what the council's rules are.
Councillor Darwan, if you were concerned about the council's rules, when I set it out right at the beginning, you had your right then to ask what the rules were, and if I was in... Could you please leave the chamber? Please leave the chamber, Councillor Darwan. I'm going to adjourn the meeting, guys. I'm adjourning the meeting, everybody. Sorry. So, before I come back to Councillor Lawson to finish... sorry. Taylor, I do apologise. Before I come back to Councillor Taylor to be able to finish off the point that I was making, I just want to clarify that the Constitution was followed correctly by myself, and the member refused to leave. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Joe Lawson for respecting the Council, for respecting the Chamber and respecting the Chair and the Constitution and leaving when I asked her to. Unfortunately, Councillor Darwan showed disrespect not just to the Chamber but to the entire debate. Because of her, we are potentially going to run out of time. This has been an issue that has affected members in this chamber alongside communities out there in Kirklees. It was important that we had a wider debate where members who had pressed the buttons to speak on the debate will now not be able to do that. And the members of the public need to be aware that the only person they've got to thank for not being able to have a full debate on the Gaza motion is Councillor Darwan. Because because we've had to cut the meeting short because I've had to adjourn. So it's not a shambles of democracy. The Constitution has been followed and we could have had a wider debate. I am now going to move on to Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor, sorry, Councillor Darji, are you moving that we take this to the vote? Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Scott. We will now move to the vote on this topic, and we're going to vote by using our consoles. Thank you. I'm not having any other debate on this. Please go to the vote. This is to move to the vote on the motion on Gaza, item 12. Sorry. This is to vote to move the vote. Sorry, not voting on the motion. This is to move the vote. Clarity. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, members. That is carried. So we are now... Could I just have silence in the chamber, please? We are now going to move to the vote. So this is the vote for the motion itself. Again, please use your consoles. So, I'd just like to thank everybody that's been cooperative in this meeting today, because there were items on there that were important, that they got discussed and they got debated. Obviously, the debate on some was cut short. It's 9:02. No, the meeting has officially finished. So, thank you, everybody. Good night. See you at the next one.